I'd like to call the Butte-Silver Council of Commissioners special meeting for Wednesday, August 23rd, 2023 to order. Clerk, could we please have roll call?
Zero absent.
I believe we have one absent. Okay. Please, we have 11 present, one absent. Please note that Commissioner Anderson is absent from tonight as he, our prayers are with him as he's going through a little procedure. So, moving on to the prayer and the pledge. Commissioner Sorge, could you lead us?
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Fellow Commissioners, Almighty God, we implore you, look upon us and guide us this night as we make decisions which will greatly affect our community of Butte-Silver. Direct our thoughts, words, and deeds so that we please you and best serve our fellow citizens. Amen.
Amen. Next, I'll call for any public comment on any item on the agenda, and just to note, this is for the special meeting agenda that the public comment would be. Seeing none, we'll move, and I'll call for the special meeting. J.P. Gallagher, Chief Executive, is calling for a special meeting of the Butte-Silver Council of Commissioners preceding the Committee of the Whole meeting on Wednesday, August 23rd, 2023, 7:30 p.m., The purpose of the meeting will be to approve the sale of the tax deed properties for the tax deed auction and pass the resolution authorizing the approval and sale of certain tax deed properties. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. In accordance with the provisions of Section 6 of Rule 6 of the Rules of Business of the Council of Commissioners of the City and County of Butte-Silver, State of Montana, the Council hereby finds that an emergency condition exists which requires that the Council rules be suspended to allow Communication 2023-438 to be added to the agenda of the August 23rd, 2023 special regular meeting of the Council. The reason for the suspension is as follows. Communication number 2023-438 is a communication from Butte-Silver Computer Systems Support Specialist John Coles requesting authorization for the Chief Executive to sign a membership request from Adobe Inc. to enable Butte-Silver's IT department to better serve and deploy its Adobe licenses. In order to take advantage of a discount that is only available until September 1st, 2023, Mr. Coles is requesting this communication be added to the August 23rd, 2023 special regular meeting council agenda. Based upon the foregoing and to allow this matter to be acted upon, the council hereby finds that an emergency exists which requires the suspension of the council rules to add communication number 2023-438 to the agenda for the August 23rd, 2023 special regular meeting. I move to approve the suspension of the rules to consider placing communication number 2023-438 on the agenda at the August 23rd, 2023 special regular meeting agenda.
We have a motion and a second to place communication number 2023-438 on tonight's special meeting agenda. I believe we have another one to be added onto that as well. So we need 2023-437 as well to be added. Was it Lori? Was that Lori's? We've got that already. We're good. Okay, so we're good. Okay. My fault. I wanted to make sure I had the wrong one printed out here. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay. Motion passes. Moving to section 1, I don't have that. I've got the wrong one here. Yeah, 208. Okay, Commissioner Frederickson.
Well, I think I just can make a motion to approve communication, or no, or concur and place on file communication number 2023-438.
We have a motion and a second to concur and place on file communication number 2023-438. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Motion passes. Next, I will take a motion to adjourn. Oh. Do we have it? I don't have it on here. That's the problem.
Oh.
I don't
Okay, I
have
got
the
an extra
current
copy.
one, the
There, I
one
got
that
one.
I had.
I got an extra copy.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So next, we'll move to section 1, resolutions. We have one resolution number 2023-32, resolution authorizing and approving the sale of the certain parcels of the tax deed of property owned and not by the city of county of Butte-Silver, state of Montana, providing for the effective date herein. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to concur and place on file and pass, and deemed, what's that? Yeah, okay. I move to pass resolution number 2023 and pass fully read and deemed. Yeah. Having been passed and having been fully read at length. Sorry.
Second. We have a motion and a second placing resolution number 2023-32 on final reading. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? Yeah. Especially when you don't have it in front of you. Would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record.
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Next, I will take a motion to adjourn the special meeting for tonight. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by aye. Opposed? This meeting is adjourned.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Butte-Silver Council of Commissioners Committee of the Whole meeting for Wednesday, August 23rd, 2023. Commissioners, can you vote, sign in? Clerk?
One presiding, 11 present, 1 absent.
Please let the record show that Commissioner Anderson is still excused. We have already done the prayer and the pledge, so we'll move right into public comment on any items on the agenda. And we ask that you please try to keep it at 3 minutes, as it looks like we might have quite a bit of public comment. I'm not going to start the timer, but please come up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record, please.
Dan Olson, 1066 Standby Creek Road. I'm standing in regard to agenda item number 6. I stand before you as reported Pinkerton, an object of libelous writings and slanderous rants that have been directed at me and other dedicated and engaged Superfund participants. Of all the Superfund's operational units, only one, BIPSU, has provided Butte-Silver a unique opportunity, a seat at the CD negotiation table as a potentially responsible party. I feel honored and privileged and humbled to have represented the citizens of Butte by being appointed a seat at that table, which crafted the BIPSU CD according to circular law and agreed to by the settling parties in May of 2020. I oppose the proposed resolution and almost everything it stands for. Should it be agreed to, it has the potential effect of unwinding 40 years that it took us to get to the BIPSU CD agreement. It could also be subject to a fallback plan B, which is a suboptimal unilateral administrative order imposed by EPA on Butte. Imagine paratailings phase 0. There will be no amenities, and Butte-Silver Creek will still flow as it does today. Last week at this assembly, 2 history teachers and a political appointee lectured us on the Butte Superfund legacy as they have for the past 40 years. Over that time, they've been cheered by their followers and amplified by their megaphone and media. It is surprising to me that those who lectured us should know better, considering that their chosen profession as teachers know that in order to learn and understand a topic, you need to have the prerequisite competence, read and understand the assigned materials for comprehension, attend class, pay attention, listen and understand, and ask questions. I understand that that believing you're in the dark is frightening, and we begin to imagine all sorts of monsters under the bed. Let's work on fighting ignorance and with education and understanding. I understand the lecturer's passion for Butte and their concern for the residents' health, but after 40 years of repeating the same unsubstantiated opinions and assumptions purported as facts, without affecting the desired outcome, it might mean that they've become part of the problem. We need to understand and follow circular laws, learn the rules to become a player for the team that will achieve the only solution available to Butte residents today, the BIPSU CD, and its dedicated and passionate team players. If you don't agree with the current laws and regulations, lobby to change them for future cleanups and generations. I look forward to next week's EPA presentation on on-site materials. I hope that the EPA has paid attention to last week's meeting in which Chief Executive J.P. Gallagher, another teacher, controlled and managed the meeting using his innate classroom management skills. As miners know, explosives are an extremely powerful and necessary tool. If you want to reach the mother lode, you need to focus on that goal and place the charges carefully, using experience, geology, science, engineering, and the law. And mostly, tapper light so we don't do any more damage to our community and our residents whom we're all here to try to protect. I also refer to all the things that the CD, or all the Superfund stuff that have been successful in that list. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, citizens, I stand here in support of the resolution.
Sorry, sir. Name and address for the record.
Mick Ringsoft, 3310 Hannibal View.
Yep.
I hate to contradict my predecessor here, but it will unwind nothing. How many of you read the consent decree? How many? Raise your hand. Read the whole thing? All 1,730 pages. War and Peace. Excuse me.
Yeah, we can't hear you through the microphone.
Yes, I'm sure most of you have read this monster.
Yeah.
But to change anything in that consent decree at all is impossible almost. First of all, if you wanted to change it, you would need to have ARCO, EPA, the state, United States, Judge Hayden, and BP go and apply to the court to open the consent decree again. And they're going to get a no because within the consent decree, there is a resolution program written into the decree. So it's not going to unwind anything. It's not going to undo anything. And the only thing this resolution the gentlemen have introduced would do is put some boundaries on what EP and ARCO have been doing to this community for the last 40 years. In 1983, the state sued ARCO for the damages done mining in this area. Judge Haddon put a stay on it for 5 years so that ARCO could prepare their case. In 1988, they reconvened, and in 2002, they finally signed the agreement that set up the restoration work and remediation work for this area. The first draft allocation agreement was written in 1998. It's now in here after 4 reruns. But it wasn't adopted till 2006. In that allocation agreement was language that said if ARCO took care of the parrot tailings by covering them with 12 inches and cleaning the area up, they would not be liable for anything pretty much east of Harrison Avenue. And we ended up spending $30 million of restoration, not remediation money, to clean up the Parrott tailings. In 2020, well, in 2018, there was an agreement in principle on the consent decree, and in 2020, it was finally signed and agreed to. When that was agreed to, Judge Hayden's gag order disappeared. The Council of Commissioners is the legislative body for this community. The chief executive is the administrative body for this community. It is your responsibility to manage this community and pass the laws and regulations to take care of its citizens. And this resolution will go a long way to starting to put barriers on what's happened in the remediation of this area over the last 40 years. We've had some very good people going into negotiations, in secret negotiations, since 2002. But they're dealing with corporate attorneys who are getting paid $250,000 to $500,000 a year to do their job. And in almost every case, we got the short end of the stick. But you know, Fritz always says, they got the mine and we got the shaft. And that's happened a lot over the last several years. So I would just ask you, I'll read you one thing and then I'm gonna shut up, sir. But this is from an email written April 5th, 2021. And it's from Josh Bryson, who is the liability manager and global risk champion, remediation management services for the Atlantic Richfield Company. And it's addressed to Fritz with a copy to me and a couple other people. And it says, as to public involvement in the allocation agreement discussions that are currently underway, Atlantic Richfield does not agree that certain components of that discussion fall outside the confidentiality order of the CD negotiations. That's wrong. As much of what is being discussed is directly related or to the result of the CD settlement and/or negotiations themselves. We also feel that conducting publicly open discussions would be detrimental to the overall progress of developing a revised allocation agreement. However, it's my understanding that the BSD staff will present a revised allocation agreement to the Chief Executive and the Council of Commissioners for their consideration. When you get that for your consideration, you read it carefully, and I'd probably, if it was me, would not sign it. But I thank you for what you do, and I thank you for your time. And I strongly recommend that this resolution be approved so that we can defend ourselves going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any further comment on anything, item on, okay. Name and address for the record, please.
Excuse me one second. Mr. Chair and members of the council, my name is Evan Barrett. I'm here appearing as for myself as a Butte citizen. I live at 807 West Silver Street. I appeared before the council last week and urged this resolution draft to be brought forward to the committee of the whole because I think it has great merit, but it wasn't ready for prime time last week, and it needs your fine hand to make it better. Not to throw it out, not to innately delay it, but to make it better. As I read it last week, it is about setting policy parameters for your staff and for the elected officials and everyone involved with Butte-Silver to follow some parameters and some guidance, and that helps the citizens to understand what's being done on their behalf. You are the you're the policy body for Butte-Silver under the charter. You're the one that sets policy. So that's a responsibility you took on when you were elected. So take this seriously. It is very serious. Now, last week I wanted it to be advanced, and I expressed some concern about some basic principles that should be applied. One is that when it comes to cleanup, cleaner is better than dirty. Now, that's a simple premise,
and engineers and technical people get you lost in all the details. But if something comes in that's dirtier than cleaner, it's not serving the interests of the public or Butte. I discovered this thing in a response to the recent proposal by EPA, this position paper. And this came out of the response from the Natural Resource Damage Program. And it compares the total contaminant concentrations comparison for fill. And it shows that down in the Clark Fork River, down by Missoula, the concentration was 484. In the Parrott tailings, it was 3,230, and the proposal for what they're doing right now and recommending is 11,230. Now this is 23 times more contamination inside, contaminant concentration inside the fill than down the Clark Fork River. Now, you know, I know as elected officials who go door to door, how many times have you heard people saying, why do they get better treatment down there? Butte can be dirtier. It's okay, it's just Butte. Well, these are real numbers. Real numbers. This is serious stuff. You can't just let it happen because the dirty dirt train's rolling into Butte, and this is what we're going to get unless we stand up, and Butte-Silver can stand up and say no to that level of concentration. Okay? Maybe this might be okay where the Parrott was. This would be even better. So this is the kind of stuff why you have to have parameters and guidance so that whoever goes into these negotiations doesn't let this happen right here. I also mentioned to you, pursuant to the Constitution of Montana, that sunshine is better than darkness. And Mick read that statement where basically ARCO's position is that they don't agree that components of certain discussions fall outside confidentiality. Well, you know, they might not want to be talking, might not want the sunshine, but you need to demand the sunshine for your citizens, for the people of Butte. And I want to compliment Chief Executive J.P. Gallagher, because from the first day he's been in office, and I've been talking to him about this, he has always adhered to the fact that these meetings need to be observable, and if somebody finds a problem in what they see, they can contact him or you and let you know what the problem is that they saw. But they'll never contact you if they don't see it. So Butte-Silver needs to have a parameter that says all these meetings need to be observable by the citizens of Butte. Not interrupted by them, not dominated by them, observable, so they can get back to you as elected officials and say, we're not sure what we're seeing here. We're not all that happy about what we're seeing here. Now, further, when you look down the resolution, I won't take long here, as you look down the resolution, as I mentioned last week, there are 2 places in there where it recommends that people who feel like they have some conflict of interest or something should report to you or the council. And again, our charter says that they work for the chief executive. So if you want to be reported to, that should be changed to say they report to the chief executive and they can concurrently report to you if you want, okay? But you need to make that change. You need to be consistent with our charter. Lastly, there were several places in here, and I don't pass any judgment on anybody, but about conflicts of interest and the perception. Now, I've spent most of my life in the political arena, and perception is reality. And if people think something wrong is going on, as far as they're concerned, it is going wrong. So you don't want to give perception. And there is an opportunity for perception, clearly, and I'm almost apologetic for saying this because I don't have anything other than concern about what people will think that somebody who takes ARCO money into the treasury of Butte-Silver and it pays somebody's paycheck, and the person that gets paid by ARCO is in a meeting negotiating on behalf of Butte-Silver. That can lead to a perception of impropriety, even if it's not there. And we always try to observe that in a democratic society to try to make sure the citizens are comfortable with what's going on. Again, it's very important, this current position paper that is come out, by the way, and that's going to be the subject of a public meeting next week, and I will surely be there, is really not much other than a puff piece telling you why they think this is good to get the dirty dirt train loaded up and run it into Butte. And they're given all the justifications in the world. Be a skeptical listener of this, but as far as this thing is concerned, understand this is the kind of stuff that's going on. This is what's going on. And I will say this proposal that they're going to advance has been done totally without public observation. Completely, 100% without public observation. It's kind of like somebody they're baking a cake and they mix it up and they put it in the oven and it's 90% done. And they say, hey, we'd like to know what you think of this cake. Now, how are they going to change it? The public ought to be aware of what's in the cake as it's being done, instead of being asked to taste the cake and like it, which is kind of what's going on. So the very fact that this thing has been developed in the dark, without public involvement, public citizen involvement, public citizen observation, frankly, I think it renders their proposal null and void, and I'm going to tell them that next week. That's not the subject of this. The subject of this is stay with this resolution, set parameters, set things around standards that Butte-Silver can adhere to. It makes it easier for your representatives to go in there and say, guess what? Talk all you want, we're for cleaner. Talk all you want, we're not going to go into a meeting unless the public can observe. Control your own destiny. Don't let anyone else control it for you and for the citizens of Butte. So I urge you to move forth on this thing, spend time to it, but don't waste too much time, because every day goes by, they're doing more and more, and the train's coming closer. So thank you very much for your consideration. I look forward to watching you move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could I make one more comment?
Sure. Ms.
Mick
Brief,
Ringside,
Mr. Ensack, we got to.
I'm sorry. I make just one suggestion. I'm 80 years old and I'm, not real good with the internet and the world the way it is. But with Zoom meetings, you could record every meeting. Every Zoom meeting is recorded, and when you talk and ask for minutes or something else from these meetings, they don't have any, and you don't know. If you Zoom the meeting and limit it to the members in that room, but put it out to public, you can Zoom and observe. You would have a recording of those meetings on record from the Zoom call, and people would be able to observe without interrupting.
Thank you. Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Cindy Purdue-Dolan, 2810 Hannibal Street here in Butte. Tonight, I come before you not as a citizen of Butte, but as a representative and Superfund liaison for U.S. Senator, I almost said Conrad Burns, Steve Daines. Apologize. I'm too old. And so I'd just like to read a short comment from the senator tonight. Folks here in Butte-Silver Bow want a clean and healthy community, as all Montanans do. However, Butte-Silver Bow has now been on the National Superfund priority list for 40 years, and the people who call this community home deserve common sense, long-term solutions. Federal, state, and local agencies must continue to listen to the concerns and priorities of local residents in order to keep moving forward. I encourage everyone to stay involved, submit public comments, and ensure your voices are heard. Receiving hearty feedback will help craft Montana-led decisions, because we know that one size fits all, and that approach does not work. It's an honor to be your U.S. Senator, and if I can be of any further assistance with any of this, please don't hesitate to contact me. Senator Steve Daines. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Purdue-Dolan. Okay. Name and address for the record, please.
I thought for sure everybody could hear me anyway. Chris Fisk, 1835 Stewart Street. I spoke last week. Thank you for taking the time to hear me out again. I appreciate that. And I'm pretty sure this isn't going to be the last time we're going to get together. And after tonight, there's going to be some of you who don't like me. When you're talking about your community and your children, I guess everything's out there. British Petroleum, Atlantic Richfield, they got their way. Instead of us asking them and getting the answers that we want, we're now fighting amongst each other. That is a perfect world for them. They don't have to answer the questions. They're trying to make you. And in that process is going to put a split in this community. That is what's been done. That is what's been done in the past. And it continues. They walk in with a 1,700-page report saying, here's our conclusion. We're going to vote on this in 2 weeks. Everybody sitting on this board has families. They have jobs. I can't tell you the last time I read a 1,700-page book. So in order to make solid decisions, you have to put people giving you the information that you trust. I'd like to read a quote if I could. EPA is rebuilding trust in Butte. Casey, everybody knows. I've never met her, hear the name all the time. On-site material is not tailings. Waste or contaminated soil that would be taken to a repository. Well, I did a little digging. As a teacher, I did a little research. Guess what I came up with? I came up with reports from 2006. I don't even know if that information's supposed to be out there, if it's part of the gag order. But I think in 2023, I don't think that would apply. Now that you have cut your CD and you have signed to it, all that information should be available. Correct? Ms. Attorney, point of order, question?
Yeah, Mr. Fisk, we are not allowed to ask you questions.
Oh, you can't ask me questions? No. Oh, can I ask you guys questions?
No,
Oh.
no, this is just an opportunity for you to speak on anything on
Okay.
the agenda.
No, we're good. I just think that information would be useful to get a handle on exactly how these numbers came to be, where we sit now. But if I could, just to show you a couple of things that I discovered. Bureau of Mines set out a series of reports that were to be used in calculating how this was all going to come together. A couple of them don't exist in their positions anymore because their reports didn't read how I feel, stress this, I feel was supposed to be disseminated correctly in support of different groups that are involved with this cleanup. Okay? For example, on table number 4 of this report, Butte Area 1 Restoration Site, this comes from your final report, and this came a little bit later on from February in 2015. And I was amazed, something that really caught my eyes is the amount of pounds, the metals that we're dealing with, and strictly your east diggings. I mean, it's all over, guys. It's everywhere. And according to their report, diggings east alone, copper, 2.2 million pounds. Zinc, 6.07 million pounds. 713 pounds of copper on your north side tailings, 889,000 pounds of zinc in your north side tailings alone. BTC berm, I can't relate to that. I can't speak to that. Total impact, 3.067 million in copper, 7.093 million in zinc. Your lagoons are at near max capacity. They remove 20 pounds of copper a day. Did you know that? And at that rate, it will take 500 years for that to get clean with the system they have installed. I might add, a system that failed miserably when it very much began. This would be your storm unit, your not metro sewer storm drain, Silver Bow Creek. Your first barrier failed. That's when they put in, if I am correct, and maybe we could allude to the pros and the no, you put a French drain under it so that water could be taken directly to your tailings ponds. Okay? Are you going to do that with every site when these barriers fail? Question's going to be, well, they won't fail. Well, hopefully not. Okay? That's the hope for everyone sitting in this room. That's the hope for every father and mother that have children that exist in this community. And yes, it is our responsibility as parents and teachers to get the story right, to do your research, to know partially of what you're talking about, but more importantly, JP, you would know as a teacher, students need to ask questions. Students need to wrap their heads around concepts. Students need to be able to digest the material you are throwing it at them, and you have failed miserably. I came in May 1st. I had no chip on my shoulder. I talk to you people every day. May 1st, I asked 8 questions, none of which have been answered. None. How can we go see this meeting? You can't. It's already been held. When? The only reason that you would have secret meetings is you have something to hide. And I don't accuse anyone sitting at this council of doing that. But if that's what occurs, plain and simple, that's wrong. Period. Opening the lines of communication. What communications? You start off a presentation to your public, and it's got 11 acronyms in it. How is the public supposed to digest this? I believe you got to put people in trust to make these decisions for us. However, you need to let your citizens know what they're going to get saddled with, not only during, but after the cleanup. We've talked about gray fill. That seems to be this anomaly floating out there, this gray fill. It's not contaminated enough. It's contaminated, but not enough. I just think as a teacher, it's important we have good visuals. This is your gray fill that was used. Mr. Chairman, I can't pass this around. I've been asked not to give this material out because that person's worried about getting fired. But I can describe it to you, and I have no problem showing some of you this diagram. Right in here is your gray fill. This gray fill, some of which came off Butte's original waste dump. So if you look carefully, we've got a tin can here. We've got a handle of a coffee cup here. God knows what that is. Christ, that could be Frank Little. I don't know. That's this big barrier there. That's your gray fill. Thought I'd let you see that photo, just to let you know that's acceptable under your CD. One more thing. We're getting ready to take a little walk across from Chamber of Commerce. I've been privileged enough to watch that process take place. I've worked for the Butte Chamber of Commerce for the last 20 years. And I'm just curious. Give me just a moment here, please. I'm kind of getting geared up. That cleanup site, that site that they did, this is exactly what was planted. This is what was put into there after they put their barrier in, after they put in their fill, whether it's clean or gray. This is what they planted. Black cottonwood, Canadian red chokecherry. By the way, these are all natural species to the area. Chokecherry, I assume prunus from the research that I found. There's 2 different types that grow indigenous in southwest Montana. The next, Colorado spruce, native willow, Pacific willow, quaking aspen, Rocky Mountain ash, Rocky Mountain juniper, silver buffalo berry, and Siouxland poplar. Real simple question, where are they? They're dead. Go drive by. If they planted that many trees, What's your percentage of survival and why did they die? I was told it's because the roots reached past your barrier and poisoned those trees. How deep is that barrier? Good question, isn't it? Because if it's going to kill a tree, it'll kill your kid. This responsibility lies with an entire community. That's what you guys represent. If these individuals who have labeled Pinkertons or made fun of, I don't know who did it. I stand here alone, and I will back up anything that I say, and I have no issues with that. If you have children or grandkids and you love this community, these questions that are being asked should not be ostracized. These students that don't know this whole process should not be made fun of. They should not be kicked out the door. When they ask a question, that question should be answered. And guess what? We don't get those answered. That first meeting, I asked what the national standard was for lead levels. And I watched 40 people's heads around the room stare down at the ground. For the record, it's 400. Anacondas is 200. Buttes, 1,200. That's our threshold. 400 is your national levy. Is what that tells me, one of two things. Either anaconda children are more valuable than Butte children, or they've raised that threshold so they don't have to clean up so many of the different areas to save money. And if I'm wrong, I'd like that question answered. Open the lines of communication, guys. We're not the enemy. We are your citizens, and we're trying to say something. I heard a comment made last week. Do they got to sue them to get this information?
Mr. Fisk, I'm going to have you wrap it up here. We're getting a little bit off topics that are on the agenda.
How so, sir? Mr. Chairman.
We're talking about lead, and you're saying
Okay, sorry, got off on a tangent there. But
it's
there's
okay.
so many
It's
things
good
that
information.
need to be unanswered
I appreciate your passion,
that people have
I'm
done research on,
I'm
and we get
struggling
more
to
and
find
more every day.
what's on the agenda here for
Okay?
what you're talking
so,
about.
Thank you for your time. Keep up
Thank
the good
you.
work as best you can. See you next week.
Name and address for the record, please. Thank you.
My name is Joe Griffin. I live at 1121 West Diamond. Mr. Chairman and members of the council, I speak in opposition to the resolution. This is item 6 again, of course. I think the irony in that resolution is it starts out talking about, we've been here for 40 years. And as all this resolution will do is take what's an expected maybe another decade and turn it into 20 years or 30 years. This is only a drag on a well laid out process. I've heard a number of people, including Mr. Fisher last week, refer to how can anybody ever get through this. And I raised my hand when Mick said, has anybody here read it? And I'm wrong. I didn't read the consent decree. I've read most of the technical parts. The consent decree is a legal document. I've read parts of it, but I'm not a lawyer. And I've left those opinions up to the lawyers I know. But the idea here is that we have not been informed. And I would take the members of this council that were there at the time back to that time. I don't know how many meetings EPA had presenting their proposed plan. It gave it to you in spoonful, bite-sized pieces and explained a very difficult process. Now, let me remind you, that's a proposal to amend the record of decision, and that is solely EPA's decision, nobody else's. But that record of decision led to all of the negotiations that led to how do we get there? These are the decisions, the major decisions were made by EPA, but the negotiation tells how the process will work after that. I remind this August body that they voted 10-2 to approve it. I hope they did their due diligence, and I hope they went to many of those EPA meetings. I know a lot of them did. And I don't expect anybody to go back and read this whole thing or understand all those details. I expect you to have a bit of trust. And I expect you to have a bit of trust for, first of all, EPA. They are working hard to protect human health and the environment. They've worked on this for, as we've said, 40 years. I'd also ask you to trust their partner in all of this, and it was not always easy between the two agencies, but I'd ask you to trust DEQ. But first and foremost, I really, again, ask you to trust your own staff here, the Reclamation and Environmental Services. They have been here a long time. They have been through all of this. I guess I'd throw in at the end, you guys had Dan Olson go to those secret negotiations, and he came back here and informed you what was going on. And he could only give you, he couldn't tell you what went on, but again, you have to have trust. I don't know if you can't trust a member of your own council. So with that, that's all I got to say. Honestly, this will be a drag. If this resolution goes through, it will certainly drag down progress. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'll make this quicker than anybody else. John McKee, 2714 Edwards. 40 years of work went into this. Really great, amazing bomber work. And if it's that good, it should be 100% easy for you to get behind being transparent in the process that works with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment? Okay. Thank you for everyone that spoke for and against or anything on the agenda. Moving on to report of the chair. I'm going to keep it brief. We have, as you guys know, quite a bit on here. I'll save my comments for when we do have the resolution. But I just want to remind commissioners and everyone else, staff talking, to have a respectful and productive conversation this evening. Last week, emotions ran a little bit hot, and I completely understand that. If there's anything that fires up Butte people is Superfund talk, and we all have different experiences with mining and Superfund, and so some take it pretty hard, and some kind of let it roll off, and so respect everyone's views on this, and let's have a good, productive meeting, and we'll get through it. So with that, I'll move on to Section 1, bid openings, public hearings, and/or presentations. Communication number 2023-410, Matthew Dorrington, Remedial Project Manager, U.S. EPA Region 8 Montana Office, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to give a presentation regarding EPA's current progress and plans regarding West Side Soils Operable Unit, WSSOU remedial investigation on August 23rd, 2023. Mr. Dorrington. And I would also like to remind commissioners as we get into this, that this is just a presentation on West Side Soils Operable Unit. There's not going to be any, Mr. Dorrington is not going to be answering any questions on gray dirt material. As we've heard, that is next week at the Butte Emergency Center at 6 o'clock. So if you want to speak on that and ask questions, that's the time to do it. This presentation is not, and Mr. Dorrington is going to get into the differences on the operable units and what their plan is for West Side Soils. So thank you. Mr. Dorrington.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Again, my name is Matt Dorrington. I'm a remedial project manager for EPA. I started working on the West Side Soils operable unit about 3 months ago, taking over for Nakia Green. Thank you for the opportunity to give you an update on West Side Soils, where we're at in the project, and happy to be here. So what I prepared comments on is just an overview of the Superfund process, where we're at, and what steps lie ahead of us. The remedial investigation feasibility scope, residential yard and well sampling. Done a lot of sampling in the area, so we'll provide you an update on that. The current project status, our efforts around community involvement, and then next steps. And I've set aside some time at the end for some questions. I'm not sure how we're going to take questions, but I'd appreciate waiting till the end, if possible. Thanks. Okay. So right now, we're in the remedial investigation stage. The purpose of remedial investigation is to determine the nature and extent of contaminants in the area. So what type of contaminants, to what levels, and where are they located? Concurrent with the remedial investigation is a risk assessment. And right now we're expecting a draft for EPA review from our contractor within the next few weeks. The feasibility study, which follows that and is actually moving concurrently as well, we're looking to complete by the second quarter of next year. And the feasibility study is really development of screening and cleanup alternatives. So for the nature and extent of contaminants are out there, what alternatives exist to clean that up? What strategies, what technologies can we use? That's the purpose of the feasibility study. Those alternatives and the ones we select are based on risk assessments and, again, the extent of the contaminants in the area. After that, we'll move to a proposed plan and record of decision. The proposed plan will summarize EPA's recommended preferred alternative. It opens a public comment period whereby the public can provide feedback and help us shape a better remedy. The remedial investigation feasibility study, I'll call it RIFS from now on. I think I've said it a few times. The scope, so OU13 is what's also referred to as West Side Soils. It was defined in the BIPSU CD, as I understand it, and it defined that area generally to the north and the northwest of BIPSU, which is the orange area on the slide here. Early in this study, it was also decided that we were going to include the basin and Blacktail Creek drainages. Those are the areas in purple to the south there. The reason for that is because there is a surface water impact and there are contaminants from those areas that are impacting BIPSU. It was decided to include those areas in the data gathering and data evaluation. So again, we're determining the nature of extent of contamination. That work's going on right now. I mentioned the sources from Blacktail Creek and Basin Creek. And then towards the end of this, and as we develop the feasibility study and alternatives, we'll move towards outlining those, ranking them, and evaluating cleanup alternatives. So the area in green is what's generally referred to as the West Side Soil Study Area. All those orange dots are samples. This area has been sampled extensively. The blue dots are residents, residents' yards, soil samples from those yards. The sampling has gone on for 3 or 4 years now. It includes both soil and subsoil, also not just the mine or disturbed areas. There are over 500 mine features in this area. These are mine dumps or areas where excavation has occurred or actual mining. It also includes the undisturbed areas or the native soil areas. So we're looking in those areas for something to help us define or better determine nature of extent. The surface water, sediment, pore water has been sampled in these areas. I got the numbers up there. I won't go through them all. And stream habitat evaluations. Sampling, as I mentioned, has occurred in the Blacktail and Basin Creek drainages. Samples are done over seasons, so not just one season. So we're looking at how are the drainages functioning over time, also during large stormwater events to see what the effect is, and then down in some storm sewer manholes that are entering Blacktail Creek. We've done some sampling in those areas. So it's pretty extensive, and we'll continue. I wanted to talk a little bit about the residential yard sampling. We attended the Board of Health meeting a few months ago. I had the opportunity to meet with Dr. Seth Cornell and review he had a number of questions about the sampling that had been done in that area, some very good questions, and met with him and had a good conversation with him. He actually helped inform and help me prepare this. Well, his comments helped me prepare this presentation to make sure we're covering, areas where folks may have had questions. So I really appreciate his help and his input. I found it very, very useful. So in 2022 soil sampling campaign, 53 properties were identified in the Westside Soils Mine Study area. Only 31 of those properties provided access. So EPA reached out to homeowners. Some homeowners said, we don't want to participate, and others just didn't respond. So one property had already been remediated under the RMAP program, Residential Metals Abatement Program, and so 30 yards were sampled in the 2022 sampling campaign. We followed a similar approach to our RMAP, looking for screening levels of lead and arsenic. Only one sample had an exceedance for the RMAP action level, and that was for arsenic at 6 to 12 inches. It's important to note that as we sample this area and gather data, we're finding other metals. Manganese there's quite a bit of manganese in this area. 6 properties with soil samples were above the regional screening level. There's generally a naturally elevated levels of manganese in the Westside Soil Study area. Thallium was another contaminant that's identified during this sampling campaign. Okay, so for groundwater, well, one of the things, let me mention this first, that, in my meeting with Seth, or excuse me, Dr. Cornell, a lot of the feedback was, hey, you've done all this sampling, you've got well data, you've got soil data, how come it's not out there? So we went out to the website, the public-facing website, and put all the results from the soil samples and the well samples. We put examples of letters that we sent to homeowners. Once the results were received, all the homeowners were sent letters notifying them of their contaminant levels. Flyers and fact sheets were sent out as well for those contaminants, helping to inform, educate homeowners specific contaminants that are on their properties. So it was great feedback, and it was a gap that we closed. We made sure that all that data was readily available, and that exists today on our web. So having said that, the well data, and as Dr. Cornell pointed out, is really difficult. So this is my attempt to summarize all that data into some key takeaways. Over the 3 or 4 year period between EPA's well sampling results and Montana Resources sampling results, there are 41 individual or unique wells. So 41 unique wells were sampled. Of those 41 that were screened for arsenic, manganese, and nitrate, you see the number of exceedances on the left there. So 20 for arsenic, 10 and 4 for nitrate and nitrite. 35 of those unique wells were evaluated for uranium, and there were 5 exceedances. Tap exceedance. Let me explain this a bit. For the 31 homeowners who were contacted, 8 indicated that they had some type of well treatment. They had the ability to treat well water, and so for those folks where we had again treatment systems, their tap water was evaluated, and so. Of the 14, this is between EPAs. I said 8. 8 is EPA's number. 5 is from Montana Resources. But of the 14 unique taps where folks said they had treatment systems in place, there were a number of exceedances. Now, this could be for any number of reasons. We don't know. We didn't evaluate if they were performing the right maintenance, if the filters were current or fresh or new, and we didn't know if those systems were functioning. But it's important to note that of those 14 where folks are actively treating their water, there are still exceedances out there. And these homeowners were notified. They sent letters with the results. We sent flyers and fact sheets on the different types of treatment systems out there and how to maintain them. And that information is also on the public website too, so you can see what we sent them. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say about this one. So current project status, again, we're finalizing the remedial investigation report. The human health and ecological risk assessments are still ongoing, and this says it's completed. They're not finalized yet, but they're near completion. The Blacktail Creek additional analysis, this is all that data that was gathered in those basins, and additional data was compiled, and a memo was developed and shared with DEQ. That memo is now with them for state review. Comments are due back soon, and so look forward to a conversation with DEQ about that. We'll continue the feasibility study to evaluate remedial alternatives. Interestingly, we still have the potentially responsible party search. The PRP search is still ongoing. This is ongoing in parallel. And we'll be finalizing the cultural resources survey. I've talked a little bit about most of this. I wanted to make sure it was clear that the EPA feels like we're communicating strongly with and effectively with those folks and those residents in this area who will listen, who are open to communicating through letters, informational fact sheets, as I said, and phone calls. In fact, just in the 3 months I've been on the project, I finished up a few phone calls with our toxicologist, reaching out to homeowners and speaking with them about their results and answering any questions they might have. But we have, as of now, we've talked to everybody who's got results. I talked about publishing the data on the website. We'll continue to provide updates during community discussions, and I'm happy to come and talk to you at any time and give you an update on where we're at in the project. And the community involvement plan, it will be revised. It was developed in May of 2021, but that will be updated, as I understand it, in the spring. So those are some of the things that we're doing around community involvement. This is a bit of a repeat, but we'll continue to finalize the remedial investigation, finish the risk assessments, cultural survey, feasibility study, and get that proposed plan, hopefully by mid next year is my goal. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Dorrington. I have a few, thanks for the presentation. Really appreciate it, and would really appreciate an update as you go along reach out to me or the chief executive or director of environmental remediation, Eric Hassler, but really would like to see how this is progressing. I do have a few questions, and you probably spoke to this in just on timing. So as you're going through it, it sounds like you're still doing the sampling and analysis and everything. At what point will you be establishing the boundary, the official boundary, I guess, or do you set the PRP and then the boundaries, or how does that all come together?
My understanding is that and I could follow up just to make sure, but my understanding is that the boundary on the project is defined once the ROD is in place.
Oh, okay. And so
The record of decision.
yeah, so the record of decision, it sounds like your goal is to have that in place by next year?
Yes.
And was that the second quarter of 2024?
Well, if we can get up, this is all dependent. If we can get a feasibility study finished, and then a proposed plan developed, there's a public comment period. Columbia Falls, for example, we're on 90 days of public comment. So it depends. It's a minimum 30 days, but it could go as long as 90. So it depends on those things stack up, and the kinds of feedback we get on our proposed plan, and then if there's any changes to proposed plan. If we have to make changes, then that will push it out further. But in terms of sequence and timing, once we've received feedback, we've developed a responsiveness summary to the proposed plan, then we'll move into developing the ROD. And that could take we could be as quick as 6 months on that, but it could take as long as a year. So I'm thinking it's so dependent, and it's so sequentially tied, but maybe early 2025.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll open it up to commissioners. Commissioner Sorich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Dorrington, for being here tonight. My question is, of all those testing sites that you've done, what are most of the natural levels readings of lead? You know, is it high, lower? What's the natural levels?
For lead?
Yeah, you know, the indigenous levels that, from most of these areas. What are you
Yeah.
finding?
Commissioner Sorich, Mr. Dorrington.
Interestingly, the lead levels in this area are very low. But what we find is because of the mineralogy of Butte, it's very diverse, and it can vary from one area to another. The manganese, for example, I don't believe manganese was identified in the BIPSU CD. This is just not as present there, but we are seeing high levels. But anyway, to your question about lead, the lead levels are low. I don't have the number memorized. It didn't trigger any of the screening levels. So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. Thank you, sir, for being here. Appreciate all your input. As many may know and many may not know, the manganese deal is right there where you're talking about. There was a manganese plant there for years. When it was done, they blew up the stack. It all fell down to the ground, and they left it there. So there's, more than reasonable cause why manganese is there, because that's what happened in the 60s, or early 70s, late 60s. So that's kind of common. I guess my other question, and it's not really a question, is where's the end of this? This has been going on like everything else. I mean, we keep talking about 2025. I mean, we're back 2020, other things. I mean, we've had people looking down wells and testing and stuff. When are we going to fix something?
Commissioner Fisher, Mr. Dorrington.
Well, I share your frustration. I think this is a but I will say that the CERCLA process is very well defined, and it's got some very distinct requirements. A lot of work that has to be sequential, and as I described earlier about trying to nail down when we finish the ROD, it really depends on how long each of those steps take and what we discover along the way, and how long and hard you need to chase some of these things to move forward with assurance that we are protective of human health and the environment. And so I think if we stay focused on following the process, we do it well, and we do our very best, and we demand the best results, the project will get done when it gets done.
Follow-up, Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. Thank you, sir. I appreciate the answer. You know, and I know you hear our frustration, and we go on with this stuff. I just keep thinking, you know, you're getting to be my age, and, you know, I've been on this commission 10 years, and I keep hearing the same thing. It kind of reminds me of the old saying that we keep doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same results. And if we're doing that, that is called insanity. I mean, and I understand that you're kind of new in Nakia, you're taking over for him, but I mean, there's got to be an end result here someplace and sometime along the way. So one other question I have is, as you're going through all these, I'm sure you have superiors to report to, and you've got legal people, you know, suggesting what you should do and should not do. As of Butte-Silver Bow, I don't know that we have any legal counsel involved in any of this right now. I know our county attorney's way busy to do anything, and you know, the attorney I think that was working on most of this for the county is retired. And, so do you feel that we need any legal input from our side?
Commissioner Fisher, Mr. Dorrington.
I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that question. I know we have outstanding attorneys assigned to this project. I know them quite well, and they're great coworkers. But I would have to defer my question to them. I don't know what Butte-Silver Bow's requirements are on the legal side. That's really kind of outside my bailiwick, so I'm sorry.
Commissioner Mankins.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson, and thank you for the presentation, Mr. Dorrington. Good information. I see that we have Dr. Cornell in the audience, and I know that he's brought up a few of these questions and the concerns that he's brought up before. And I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, Dr. Cornell, but have your questions been answered? That I know you brought this communication to us several months ago. We have EPA here. Are your questions being answered and your concerns being met?
Yep, come on up. No, you can stay right there.
No, I'm not nervous. Thank you for coming. Thanks for the council for following up and getting the presentation from the WSU. I submitted a list of questions to the council for consideration. I think some of the questions have been answered, certainly not all the questions. I'll submit some follow-up thoughts after this presentation. My chief concern really is that the human health risk assessment is being confined to this very small area called the mine study area. And as you know, there was a lot of smelting in Butte, and there's a lot of smelting in Deer Lodge County that potentially contaminated homes in Silver County. So I think the human risk assessment, again, that's Mr. Dorrington's not conducting that, that's one of his colleagues, but my concern is that's a very narrow slice of land, and could there be other folks that have soil levels that exceed arsenic or wells that exceed arsenic that aren't being tested during this risk assessment? So that's my primary concern that has not been answered. Again, I have other concerns that I've provided to the council that perhaps the EPA can submit the response formally, but again, I think the human health risk assessment is unduly narrow, and that's, I worry about other folks in Silver Bow County that aren't being tested. So.
Okay, thank you. Do you want any follow-up to that, Mr. Dorrington, or that statement? Okay,
Nope.
good, okay. Any other questions?
Can I get a follow-up then?
Oh, yeah, follow-up, Commissioner Mankins.
So I know that we thank you, Chairman, and thank you again. I know that Dr. Cornell did submit those, and we've had plenty of time with you to, I would hope, review these questions that the public is so wanting some answers for. Is there a time that we can get the rest of these answered for Dr. Cornell and the rest of us? So we can move on with this? I mean, like Commissioner Fisher said, this continues on and on and on and on and on, but I know it took us a while to coordinate you to come here to give this presentation, but I would have thought that those questions would have been submitted to you to have answered by tonight in front of us, so we don't have to bring you back again and again and again and again and again. But as Commissioner Fisher's saying, it seems like we're going to be bringing you back again and again and again and again.
Commissioner Mankins, Mr. Dorrington.
I've got answers to all those. I've got written answers, and I'm but I can submit those as soon as I leave here. Once I figure out the right venue to do it and put it on the right letterhead, I've got answers to every one of his questions. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, if you want to submit it to Council Secretary Barb Davies and distribute them and to Dr. Cornell and the rest of the health board, because I know that they've been interested, that would be great.
Not a problem.
Okay. Any other questions? Really appreciate the presentation and looking forward to many more conversations and information.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, next presentation, communication number 2023-429, Maria Porchavina, T-Bid Executive Secretary, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to give presentation of the Butte-Silver Tourism Business Improvement District work plan and budget on August 23rd, 2023, and to schedule a public hearing on September 6th, 2023 on 7/12/1132 Montana Code annotated. Ms. Porchavina, always my favorite, one of my favorite presentations of the year.
Oh, you say that to all the girls. Okay. Let's hope that I can manage this, right? Just press it that way, I'm hoping. Okay, for those of you that don't know, my name is Maria Porchavina. For tonight's purposes, I am here representing the Butte Tourism Improvement District. I am accompanied by Stephanie Serini, our Executive Director from the Chamber, and the newest member of our board, Paula Rourke, representing Town Pump Hotel Group, the Comfort Inn here in Butte. There, whoops, oh, okay. I like to go ahead and give you just a little bit of education, if I can, on how tourism funding happens here in Butte-Silver Bow. Did it just go on its own? It's the ghost. Where did Fisk go? Okay, very gently. Okay, there we go. We promote tourism through two different organizations or funding sources. One of them that I'm just going to touch on is the 4% bed tax. That is a portion of the 8% that is collected throughout the state. I'm not going to go into what happened at legislature with how that 4% that goes to promotion is going to get re-divvied up. Of that 4%, though, we do get a portion, and it's roughly $185,000 annually. I just want to mention that when I first started giving these presentations to you, it was $85,000. So in many years, 11, it's gone up considerably. What that is a calculation that is based on room rate. So the higher the rate goes, the more we collect if occupancy stays steady. We have seen a significant increase in rate in this area since COVID, so we've seen a pretty good bump. Now, the difference between CVB dollars and TBID monies is that CVB bed tax is paid for by short-term rentals, which I was looking at a report that I don't subscribe to, so I just get a very high overview. That represents the largest hotel in Butte-Silver Bow with 189 properties. And I'm just going to turn to Paula. Is that about what you guys are thinking as well? Our next largest hotel is Fairmont Hot Springs with roughly 150 units. Also, RV parks pay into that, bed and breakfast, along with our standard hotels and motels. The TBID is just collected by our lodging properties, so i.e. the Comfort Inn, the Copper King, Miners Boutique Hotel. I also want to share that with regard to how we stretch the bed tax dollars is that we are able to participate in joint ventures with the state of Montana, Montana Department of Commerce Brand MT, along with our tourism region of Visit MT. I will be asking a resolution to be written on $1 per occupied room. I'm sure there'll be questions about that later because there always are. I am expecting this year's collection, or for this next fiscal year, to be about 260,000. In fact, it might be a little bit more than that, but I feel comfortable with that number. Okay, just as a little reminder, I like to share this, and I do it every year. These funds can only be used for promotion, marketing, and support. They cannot be spent on brick and mortar projects, and they are used with the sole purpose, I mean, our mission is very simple, heads and beds, is to fund projects that increase either hotel occupancy or increase their rate. A little bit going back to the bed tax, just so that you have some understanding. Bed tax is primarily to get the non-Montana resident here in this area, but since COVID, we've seen a change in that, encouraging overnight stays in our community, so we are spending a little bit more money in town, or in state. Marketing plans are presented at the beginning of June by a governor-appointed Tourism Advisory Council. And two things happen with those dollars. An annual audit is done, and we have written checks as, under 10 cents to balance the audit. And evaluation reporting is required. And what the evaluation reporting has to do with is if we do a project and it was a bust, we're going to go ahead and report on that. And then we'll determine, are we going to do that again? Do we revamp it and give it another shot, or do we go ahead and just 86 the whole idea? More dear and dear to your hearts are what the TBID basics are. Again, it's to increase lodging or increase average daily rate. We look at grant applications, or the board looks at grant applications more favorably that are going to go ahead and fund events the months September to May. We have two primary funding cycles, but we also have special funding cycles as need be. But the two main ones are January and June, and then grant applications are awarded the following month. We have two grant applications. A new one that we've added is visitor enhancements, and I will be talking about that in just a little bit, but the standard events and projects. And you know, I wish Jocelyn Dodge was here. She has a great quote that says, you know, not only do I use all the brains that I have, but those that I can borrow from other people. I'm paraphrasing. Anyway, the grant applications that we utilize are not any different than what we've plagiarized from Billings, Missoula, Kalispell, Great Falls. We all kind of just use the same thing. Billings is the big dog in the game, and they have been very instrumental and helpful. So a lot of what the different communities use come from the bigger communities, but primarily Billings. Again, grant apps for events are to assist in getting their footing. The board has come a long way in understanding that a lot of these events are not going to do it without sponsorship, i.e. the Montana Folk Festival. We know that's an expensive event to put on. It might be free, but nothing is free, and it costs a lot of money for that event to take place here. This year was the first year that we had given, it's the most money the TBID had ever awarded to the Montana Folk Festival. They were awarded $35,000. Visitor enhancement grants are something new that we started looking at because our other grant application just didn't fit it. So when you're driving past the M&M, where the M&M used to stand, there's a new facade put on there. That was done in conjunction with the TBID help to finance that particular project. Another project that the TBID is participating in, and this is through the URA, Karen Burns came to us, is the wayfinding consultant. So we're going to be getting new signage in Butte, and in order to do it properly, you always hire a consultant. So she came to us, and the board went ahead, and I want to say it was $20,000 toward an, does 80 sound right? $80,000 project. So then once that wayfinding feasibility study is concluded, she'll be coming back and asking for money to assist with signage. Signage is something that we can go ahead and do. And for those of you that don't know, the chief executive appoints our board, their hotel owners or their designees, and you approve them. I'm just giving you a list. You naturally can find this on the Butte-Silver Bow website, as I do. Anyway, there are our members. Steve Lubick is the chair. He would have normally been here tonight. He's just coming back from vacation. We are in the process of adding other officers or designating those people. Okay, so to the meat and potatoes. We break this down into 7 market segments. And so if you look, there's an asterisk, and the asterisk are hard numbers. So for administration, special projects, and festivals, Those are hard numbers that we just put into that market segment. When it comes to events and tournaments, group and meetings, and leisure, that is percentages after those hard numbers are taken out. So events and tournaments is a 50%, group and meetings is 20, leisure is 36. We always try to keep 25 in reserve. That is to basically, just in case we fall short. However, as we go through this, you're going to see, 25 didn't cover it, Maria, for this year. Our collection period, this is where it gets really, really strange. So the fiscal year is July 1. I get the money in January or February, and my collection period is October 1st to September 30th. And that might sound a little wonky, but it's working. Okay, so we go ahead and we send out the forms for the collection period October 1st to September 30th because it's paid on the November tax bills. I don't ask for the check or try to collect a check until there's a pretty good pot of money there to go ahead. I don't want to piecemeal the money. I'd rather just get one check if I possibly can. Whoops. Ooh. Okay. Again, I'll say as I say every year, I love what I do, but I don't do it for free. So my position is funded through the two pots of money, TBID and through the CBB. We also participate and give funding to Voices of Montana Tourism. This is an organization that is slated with keeping tourism as an economic driver in the top of mind, primarily in our legislators, but in all Montanans. And if you follow the legislature at all this year, we need to do a little bit more work. Tournaments. This has always been based on grant applications. We have funded events primarily at the Civic Center and the Maroons Activity Center. Now, I know that Advantage Butte comes to this organization, and you have been very generous in giving them money out of the economic mill. Just before COVID, we went ahead and we started drafting an agreement where we would award Advantage Butte 2 times the economic mill, not to exceed $25,000. A new agreement has been drafted and is in review. And what this is going to do is, it's looking as though the TBID will get out of going after events, or primarily tournaments. Let's just look at sporting events. Advantage Butte are professionals at that. They know what they're doing. And any of you that know me at all know that when it comes to tournaments and prize sporting events, that's just not my cup of tea. But anyway, we are looking at having an agreement where we will pass that money over to Advantage Butte to fund more events, or the events that we normally would take. That's still in negotiations, but we're moving forward. I would hope that the commissioners would continue to look at giving economic mill money to Advantage Butte. It's an amazing organization. And you know, when you go to the MHSA conference, or when you're talking to people such as, I spent a lot of time at the track meet in May that we were able to obtain from Bozeman. We're not referred to as Butte when we're talking about sporting events. We're referred to as Advantage Butte. This is a 20-year organization that's been out there promoting sporting events for Butte and bringing them to our community. And we want to continue to see that organization move forward. This was something that Stephanie had asked me to add in that might be of interest. This year so far, we have money set aside to go ahead and write checks once we get the appropriate documentation. This year so far, and this is January 1, so this is where it gets wonky, but $80,264. Groups and meetings, this is 20% after God bless you, after the standard numbers are plugged in. This is either to bid a conference, to promotion to entice more meetings to Butte, trade show attendance to increase Butte's exposure. So this year we've spent so far $28,000. So we're familiar with Praxis. What he is doing, and it'll start in October, is he was given promotional dollars to go ahead and promote his nurse onboarding, bringing in thousands of nurses here into the Butte community to go ahead and start that training. We also did some funding for the Montana Outdoor Recreation Summit, which will be here in Butte in October. I attended MHSA, Montana High School Association, and the Montana Hospitality and Lodging Association this year for some great meetings. Festivals, we all know what it is. There are times when we fund events, and there's times when we fund festivals. So festivals are over a specific number of days. This year, we went ahead and we funded it $43,800. That included the Montana Folk Festival and Dream Big. This was an interesting statistic out of Dream Big. We did some geofencing. You know, we all have those smartphones, and unfortunately, they follow us around. But it's not like we can get the data that we know where Michelle Shea is exactly at. Okay, she's just a ping. The number is a little bit screwy for the night of the concert on Park Street between Maine and Montana for the Dream Big event. But we were able to go ahead, and it was in excess of 450 guest rooms. So how we did that was, there were more than that, but I took out the rooms for the Miners Hotel, I took out the Finland, I took out the Motel 6. So these are the rooms that went to the Comfort Inn, to the Holiday Inn Express, to the Copper King. And it might have been, they may not have been here for that event, we understand it. It might have been people going to the front desk and saying, hey, what's going on tonight? But we're able to utilize that kind of data, and we utilize that kind of data in the promotions that we do through the CVB, through the Montana Standard. It's freaky, but it's great stuff. Leisure. Leisure is a market. We're looking for just those people who are traveling to go on vacation. And again, we're pinpointing who those people are. You know, if you're looking to go to the Indy 500 or to look at NASCAR racing or the Indy cars, we don't want to target them. Why? We don't have that here. But we're looking for those people that are looking for the outdoor recreation, for the history, for maybe wanting to check out where 1923 was filmed, so we can target those people. It's the same thing as when you're on Google and you're looking for golf clubs, and then all of a sudden you're fed all those ads. Well, if you're looking for golf clubs, you don't, I'm going to use JP because he's a good guinea pig, usually it's Fisher. He's not going to want to have Spanx support wear for women showing up in his feed, okay? You want to get the ads that are of interest to you. So because of our smartphones and because of what we Google, we're able to go ahead and send out our ads digitally and on social media platforms. We print maps. We love maps, so our outdoor recreation map, brochures, the TBID picks up a lot of the cost of that. And then I'm looking, you know, we're always looking at new ways to promote Butte. So when I'm talking about this ongoing entertainments, whether that be the Motherlode Theater or whether it be the nightlife on the weekends here in Butte, that'll be some of the promotion going forward. In 2023, we have spent $52,605. Where did that go? Motherlode Theater. CVB co-op campaign where the TBID contributed into what we're currently doing. We're doing some upgrades to the website that is being done here. Again, map printing. Butte Historical Memorials, that had to do with the Kenyon Connell fire. We did the billboard for them. And also the Story of Butte, or any of you familiar with the Story of Butte, the app. We've also done some funding there. Special projects. We always put money aside in special projects. And this can be where maybe it would be the wayfinding that we will be doing down the road. This is where we were able to put aside the $200,000 for the one-to-one match for another, when we're ready to bring another flight into Butte and need the money for a revenue guarantee. So $50,000 every year is put aside. And then I talked about the reserve. And that is pretty much it. I did want to share this. I did some quick math, and no, I don't have my laptop here for exactly. But so far this year, between commitments and what we have paid out, we're going to be right around $330,000. Questions?
Thank you, Mrs. Porchavina.
You're welcome.
Don't really have any questions for me. I think the M&M facade looks great. I've seen multiple people walk past it and look at all the information on it. It looks way better than a piece of wood. And then the wayfinding, I'm looking forward to seeing how that comes, because I do see people walking around uptown not really knowing where to go and asking me on the street, you know, how do I get to this spot, you know. So I think that'll be a nice addition to uptown. But I will open it up to questions for the commissioners if they have any. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Fredrickson. Hello, Maria, and thank you for being here. Just a couple questions. Firstly, on the short-term rentals with the CVB, this has just been coming in my mind. That was my chair. You said bed and breakfasts and stuff. So when people apply for a permit through Butte-Silver because I believe that they are supposed to when they have Airbnbs in town. When they do that, does a fee come out of that permit? Is there something within Butte-Silver, or are we not calculating at all any from the Airbnbs?
So the way
Commissioner,
how,
yeah.
oh,
Go ahead.
sorry.
No, that's okay. Go
The
ahead.
way how it works is that when you go on an Airbnb or a VRBO site, you have those additional fees. They will talk about taxes. So those sites collect that fee collect the fees for the owner and collect the fees, and then those, ideally, in a perfect world, let's hope so, and I don't even think Paula probably can really talk much about the collection of, that's not in your purview, is a collection of bed tax and how that's, yeah. They should be submitting that, okay? And that's also why we've seen another bump. But it is just automatically collected from the Airbnb and the VRBO sites.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, follow up, Commissioner Thatcher.
thank you. That's kind of what I was thinking, so I will try to look into that some more because I feel like if we're getting people still staying here, they should be contributing to that as well. As far as my math was way different than yours, but yours was a higher number, which I'll take. So that money obviously is going to worthwhile projects, as we would all deem, I would hope. So here's the $1 million question, I guess, again, is if we are spending that money on projects and an extra dollar could be added to guests, how long do we think it will be until we get maybe to that point?
So, yes, your math is going to be different than my math, because with my 330,000, I add the numbers that are presented here, I added in the 50,000 for special projects, okay, and the 25,000 for reserve wasn't in there. So is it an actual expenditure? It's money that is sitting there that we can use. What we're seeing now, finally, is that we are spending down some of that excess that we've had from COVID. And when I added this up, I was thrilled to think that we are in excess of what we're collecting. Do I think it's going to happen really soon? I don't know. Sooner than the last 11 years, definitely. And I think as more projects come forward, when we start to look at visitor enhancement projects such as wayfinding, I think that that will be something that they will look at, okay, we need more money. Possibly, you know, if ever they say, you know, maybe we need to add another person to this. You know, Stephanie and I were on a conference call today with Placer AI, and that's a company that does all this weird tracking for us. You could almost have somebody just drill down into research, you know. So moving forward, do we talk about it? We talk about it, okay? I asked when I said, hey, got to go do this, what do I say? Are we going to 2? Are we going to $1.50? And it said stay at $1. But we know we can change that, okay? So I think we're closer than further away, but I have no date.
Follow up, Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Maria. So then this is a technical question for you, County Attorney Joyce. In the event that we pass a resolution where it says $1, which is what Mrs. Portovino will ask us to do, is there a time and place after we've had positive discussions with the members of the T-bid board? Hopefully, we can change it to $2, maybe one day, hopefully. Is there a time where we can go back and revisit this resolution or put forth a new resolution to change that, or does it all have to stay for the whole year?
County Attorney Joyce.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Thatcher, I think you're supposed to determine the assessment per year, and in order for the budget office and the assessor's office to prepare and the treasurer's office to do the tax statements and put it on there, once it's determined, it could be revisited in the next year, because the law does require the TIBID to come up every year and prepare their budget and work plan, which is what she is doing right now and would have to, again, do next year. But
Can I just add on to that?
Yeah.
We still have money in reserve without touching. Could we do another year like this? Yeah, we probably could. And then could come forward next year. you know, because some of these things that we would maybe fund in the future would be down the road, you know, because the money would come in at that wonky time in January, February.
Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. Maria, thank you. I think it's your best presentation you've given since I've been on council. Not the other ones were bad. I just liked your information this time. Maybe I was paying attention more, let's be honest. But I do appreciate all your information. I want to talk about the dollar to you know, the $2 or whatever, adding the dollar. I just feel like in the conversation, and I've never had any conversation with any of the members of the board or anything, but I just feel like we're behind the 8 ball. I feel like, I don't know if, I was trying to Google comparatives to other towns, like we're the mighty Butte, #1 on the license plates, #1 on your hearts, but we're behind the 8 ball on this deal. All the other AA cities are not $1, and I just wish we would take that mentality, and if we have more money, we can spend it. There's tons of stuff to spend this money on, like, and I just wish that we could have why not now? Like, instead of waiting a year, I just feel like that should be a conversation I wish we could have. I think it's more important to do it now, and let's not be behind the 8 ball. Again, we are behind the 8 ball, in my opinion, and I guess that's just my opinion, but I appreciate everything you guys do and all the funding, and a lot of great things come out of it, but I don't know, I think we're just leaving money on the table, and I appreciate you letting me speak. Thanks.
Would you like to follow up to that?
I think we're closer than further, so.
I mean, it does kind of seem like since I've been on here, you've said no.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to happen, and now you're kind of
you know, COVID changed a lot of things, and you know, before the no was, you know, we don't want to add another $1 to our room rate, were some of the comments that we received. Well, we've seen a lot of dollars added to our room rate, but also we have to be, grant money is weird money, right? There's hoops you have to jump through. So let's just use the Silver Bow County Fair. Could they come forward and ask for grant money? Sure they could. Are they going to go ahead and start promoting the Silver Bow Fair outside of a 125-mile radius to bring people here? If the answer is yes, then come to us and ask for money. If the answer is no, then don't. Okay, it's not going to work. So are there enough functions out there? And we're getting more and more. We are getting more and more events. I mean, look at how many events we had this year. I'm not even going to stand here and try to remember in a menopausal moment, but we're starting to become that festival city. But you have to jump through hoops with grants. And so if you're going to promote outside to encourage our mission of heads in beds, come forward. If you're not, it's a waste of your time and you won't be considered, because those are the questions that are asked by the board. How are you going to go ahead and entice people to come to Butte? Can we spend more in our leisure campaigns looking for those onesies and twosies, those moms and dads, those couples? Sure we can, okay? We spend somewhere in the neighborhood of, I don't know, for Butte-Silver Bow alone, I'm going to say probably $250,000 out promoting in different areas, primarily digital, and you get a lot of bang for your buck. But if we're going to look just at events, we need to be talking to events that want to go through the grant hoops to get the money.
Okay. Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. Maria, it's good to see you. Thank you
Good to
for
see
your
you too, Danny.
presentation. I just got one question. You guys always in the right and sponsor many of things at the Civic Center. Should Mr. Melvin and the board be concerned that you're changing your ways on your doing sporting events? Are we going to lose some of that, or how should we feel about that?
It would be the hope that that the tournaments at the Civic Center would continue to be funded at that level. That's why we are in the process, you know, we have the draft and it's being reviewed by the TBID board. We want to make sure that we're still making whole everybody that we have funded. So it's a good conversation, you know, and there's a lot more things out there that Advantage Butte has their tentacles into. You know, what I do is, you know, people come forward, they submit a grant, and the board determines whether to fund. The Advantage Butte just is out there just that much further and has, I think, it just has a bigger presence. I would just hope that we would. We have a lot going on at the Civic Center next year. 2024 is a big year. I should have brought that list. But I don't even want to throw a number out. I'm not going to throw a number out. I think between 24 and 25, we're over $100,000 in events just at the Civic Center. So we would want to see that continue. If we're going to kind of get out of the tournament business, we're going to get out we'll just not go after that. If somebody comes forward, had a guy call me the other day looking at Idaho Prep basketball. You can go ahead and Google that one. Wants to bring us an event in April. Perfect time. Didn't ask for money, but Advantage Butte, we bring that forward to them. But those are the kind of things we need to look for, and I think they're more in tune with it because of the membership. Did that really just not answer your question?
You didn't give me a yes or a no, but
I should go into politics, shouldn't I?
I would have loved a yes.
Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Maria, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for the presentation. Quick question for you. So you said that money can't be used for bricks and mortar. Is that an MCA or is that a Butte-Silver Bowl ordinance? Do you know?
No, that's MCA.
Okay, because reading the MCA, it says promote health and safety, general welfare, inhabitants of a district and people of the state. So it's pretty broad.
It is broad. Eileen, can you help me with this?
County Attorney Joyce.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Sorge, I think it's actually in the resolution that first adopted the TIBID, and it specifies in that resolution what the money was going to be used for. And then we have every year after that just adopted an assessment. But I think the original resolution spelled out what the money was going to be used for. And then I think when the original TIBID was for 10 years, and then when we decided to up it again, we used the same language and had the same purposes listed in the resolution for what the money could be used for.
You're right. And I just want to say that the resolution that was drafted for ours did mirror those of other cities. And so that is a point that when I attend other conferences and we get together as TBIDs, that's something that we really try to stay pure on, because we know that it would be, you know, it's a great pot of money, isn't it, that anybody would love to be able to get their hands on. Lester isn't back there anymore, but, you know, maybe he'd like some new police cruisers. But we want to keep this money pure. And as long as we have been collecting a bed tax, we have fought it very, very hard at legislature, and that money now is no longer pure, and it's not collected for, you know, for tourism promotion. It's going to be going in different areas. So, yeah, it was the original resolution.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, County Attorney.
I wasn't quite involved at that point.
Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mimi, for being here.
You're welcome.
I always love hearing from you. So I just want to make sure that I understand. When you say you're getting out of the tournament business, does that mean you're no longer going to allow, or will Advantage Butte no longer be able to apply for funding from the?
Oh, no.
Okay.
We have, it gets a little, okay.
That's all I needed was a yes
no,
or no
we
on
will,
it.
all we're going to do is transfer funds over to them. Okay, rather than, sometimes what happens is you come to Advantage Butte for funding, and then you come to the TBID for funding. And what we possibly kind of, or what I sort of understand is two entities are sort of funding the same costs. So we only want one entity in charge of tournaments, athletic events, let's just say athletic events, so that you just go to one entity and get money. And also, Advantage Butte is more nimble than the TBID is. They meet more often, and they can make decisions more on the fly than the TBID can. So it's just a better way to go ahead and facilitate that and get a quicker turnaround.
Follow up, Commissioner Shea.
Thank you for that explanation. And I know that there are some organizations that come to this body, to our Economic Development Committee, requesting mill levy funds that we are also funding. So the same entities that are requesting money from the T-bid are also requesting money year after year from that fund. Advantage Butte being one, the Folk Festival. And I would like to see an increase in the $1 to possibly $2 to maybe enable them to more appropriately seek money from the T-bid. And I know this is a cause close to former Commissioner Olson's heart as well. So I can see you back there smiling and nodding your head. But I would like to be able to see that economic development mill levy be opened up for more than just one-time events or yearly events. Not to say that they aren't super valuable. They are. But there are a lot of people that bring things to the table, and I think they're trying on the committee to try to get their arms around like maybe having some special initiatives each year rather than just the run of the mill. You've got the festivals, you've got the this, you've got the that. So that's just something I would hope that the board would consider. I would love to support you guys however I can, and the other organizations as well.
No, I get that. I understand.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Thatcher.
Sorry, last
I
thing.
get more questions than the EPA.
Maria, I know in a few conversations we've had, kind of piggybacking off of what Commissioner Shea is saying, I know that there are some events in town that cannot apply for funding through the T-bid because of the application process. And I understand that, you know, there are hoops and stuff with grant money and all of that. But I'm curious if we had gone anywhere with being able to calculate the heads and beds based on the Montana Department of Chamber equation instead of having to get that information directly from the hotel itself.
And it's hard to get it from hotels. I'm a hotelier. There are ways to work around that, and it's just been changes in ownership and management, and people would rather probably do this than maybe go in and visit with a hotelier. But that's where I don't have a cell phone, but I do. It's been in my purse. But these things can help, okay? If I was doing an event and I was dependent upon working directly with the hotels and having them calculate the number of rooms for, I'll say Dream Big, I would be in that hotel, and before the event, I would be visiting with the staff, and I would be talking to them. This is very, very important to me, and I really need this data, whether it be a tally on the side or whatever. So we have to look for some other way to do it. I don't think, and we're not the only community that does it that way, okay? I didn't come up with this. I just copied other people's stuff. But every grant has hoops to go through, and there are organizations out there that would rather just ask for money and not have to go through the hoops, and that's a part of the process, okay? Just like when people say, well, can you just write me a check? No, I need the receipts. There are ways to work around it, and if you really are promoting outside your area, you'll get the business. You will. Again, I should run for office. A lot of words and didn't say anything.
No. No more questions? Thank you so much.
Okay, all right.
Always love your presentations.
I think that the EPA guy should come back up and.
Yeah, where's it?
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to ask for a 5-minute recess so we can use the restroom and regroup. So we will we'll reconvene here at, we'll do 7 minutes. We'll reconvene here at 9:30.
Don't get a hernia from that.
Okay, we have one more minute, so let's start gathering back into the chamber.
Where's he at?
All right. Let the record show that all commissioners are back. And we'll move on to Section 2, Communications. 1, Communication number 2023-327, Dan Villa, 146 Whisper Ridge, Butte, Montana, informing the Council of Commissioners that the Homestake Meadow 2 Homeowners Association voted overwhelmingly at their June 13th semi-annual meeting to request Butte-Silver form a special improvement district for the purpose of road paving. Attached is a map of the proposed properties for inclusion, and the successful bid will receive from a local contractor. We will continue to hold that, I believe, because I have not heard otherwise. Two, communication number 2023-379, Danette Gleason, Finance and Budget Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a public hearing for the adoption of the fiscal year 2024 final budget and establish the user rates for metro sewer system, stormwater system, solid waste disposal and collection, and lighting and fire hydrant districts. The public hearing will begin on August 9th, 2023, and will be continue until the Council of Commissioners set a date to adopt the fiscal year 2024 final budget and fix the rate and levies. We had that meeting yesterday. Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I would like to make a motion to place communication number 2023-379 on file.
We have a motion and a second. Is there anything on the question? Would commissioners please vote? Clerk, will you record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay. Motion passes. Motion passes. 3, communication number 2023-382, Tim Cassidy, Special Improvement Rate Analyst, requesting Council of Commissioners concurrence to hold a public hearing on August 2nd, 2023, regarding changing the street maintenance assessment method to units from a per parcel method as pursuant to communication number 2023-210. The street maintenance flat fee will remain at $87.71 per unit. We've had this public hearing, and I believe we can place this on file as the resolution gets adopted. Okay. Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I would like to make a motion to place communication number 2023-382 on file.
We have a motion and a second. Is there anything on the question? Would commissioners please vote? Clerk, will you record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay. Motion passes. 4, communication number 2023-410, Matthew Dorrington, Remedial Project Manager, U.S. EPA Region 8 Montana Office, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to give a presentation regarding EPA's current progress and plans regarding West Side Soils Operable Unit remedial investigation on August 23rd, 2023. We had this presentation earlier. Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I would make a motion to place communication number 2023-410 on file.
We have a motion and a second. Is there anything on the question? Would commissioners please vote? Clerk, will you record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay. Motion passes. Motion passes. 5, communication number 2023-429, Maria Porchavina, TBID Executive Secretary requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to give a presentation of the Butte-Silver Tourism Business Improvement District Work Plan and Budget on August 23rd, 2023, and to schedule a public hearing on September 6, 2023, on 7/12/1132 Montana Code annotated. We had this presentation, and I believe Ms. Porchavina will be putting on a, submitting a communication for a public hearing for September 6th. So, Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I would make a motion to place communication number 2023-429 on file.
We have a motion and a second. Is there anything on the question? Would commissioners please vote? Clerk, will you record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. 6, communication number 2023-436, Jim Fisher, Commissioner, District 6, requesting a resolution to be considered for expressing the policy of Butte-Silver regarding consent decree, commitments, communications, and public transparency. First, I want to say, I want to keep it respectful and productive conversation. Also, I think that these Superfund, issues that come before council can be pretty heated, and I think that everyone will agree that the reason for that is because everyone wants to do what's right for Butte, and whether it's our chief executive, our commissioners, our CTEC, everyone in here wants what's best for Butte. So I want us to all remember that as we're having this conversation. And that goes for especially current Superfund Butte-Silver employees. Everyone wants what's best and is trying to do the right thing for our community. Everyone here loves Butte. So let's not get into pointing fingers at one group or another. That doesn't do anything for us. I think the point of the resolution that was, when I first read it, was to try to set some sort of policy going forward to build trust within the community, and not saying that accusing employees of anything, but there is that perception out there, and I think that, I hope that, I'm sure current employees did take it personal, but when I read it, I didn't look at it as something that was being accusatory or anything like that, but we really need to, if we can't have these conversations, it disappoints me that we've even gotten to this point where we're being accused that we can't do this, we can't, I'm kind of sick and tired of what this council can't do, and I would like to think about what we can do. And, I also want to, commend Commissioner Fisher for putting his name behind this. These are difficult conversations to have, and us as commissioners, it's not easy. It's been, we've had many conversations amongst ourselves with constituents, and these are really, really hard conversations, and I want to thank you guys, every commissioner up here, for serving and thinking about this and trying to do what's best for Butte. And so I will open this up to discussion. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. I appreciate everything you just said, and I totally agree. And I guess as an opening comment, I'd just like to state that any resolution that comes before the council or the public, or as we discuss these resolutions, and every action causes a reaction, and this one kicked off reaction from action, and it got a little stinky there for a while, no doubt, and it probably still is. But the thing about it is, a resolution submitted by me or any other commissioner or group of commissioners or anyone should be taken as a resolution. It should be discussed. It should be redlined, like we always do on every resolution. should be redlined, and it should come back for discussion, and we should discuss it again. And then when we get a medium point with redline and not redlining, we'll have a resolution that we can accept, because we all know there's a couple things in here that probably are not correct, just like the employees reporting to the chief executive. But this was a resolution that was written by some pretty intelligent people. And I mean, there's comments made that Fisher's not smart enough to write a resolution to this. That's derogatory, you know, and I've seen it and I know who said it. And say whatever you want. I got big shoulders. I'm not worried about that. So what I want to do is this resolution should be taken under. Everybody should read it, put their red lines through, and put what they want in there, and then let's have a consensus of what we're going to do. The other thing is, you know, the consent decree, when we go back to the consent decree, District Judge Brad Newman, retired District Judge Brad Newman, sat right before the council, anybody who's on the council, and said we shouldn't sign that consent decree because of Silverbow Creek was a waterway of the state of Montana covered by the Constitution of the state of Montana. And our county attorney had Franz and Driscoll write a letter that convinced the county commissioners that they were wrong. But the state of Montana never did appeal that decision. And Franz and Driscoll never did have a dog in the fight. So that was a little different, but that's over and down the road now. So I guess as we move on, you know, Joe Griffin made a point tonight that Dan Olson, you know, he sent out a criticism to the resolution, which is fine. But Joe said that the council appointed Dan Olson. Dan Olson wasn't appointed by the council to serve on that committee. He was appointed by Chief Executive Matt Vinson at the time. At that time, Dan Olson was a first-term commissioner, and he was appointed by Matt Vinson. So council never had anything to do with that. And Dan was never elected. He was appointed by the Council of Commissioners. He was never elected commissioner, and there's been a lot of say about how he got where he did in the information, which is intermittent. Dan and I personally think he's a friend. I think we have differences, just like I do with a lot of people, but that doesn't mean personalities get involved. So I guess, you know, I asked a question earlier tonight about legal counsel, you know, and I guess a question I have right now is, who is counseling us as commissioners and the executive branch? Who's counseling us right now as legal counsel? I know the county attorney's busy. Who is kind of doing this for us right now? I mean, the consent decree's large. It's new. JP doing a great job. No problems there. But maybe we need someone to take a look at this from both sides. The resolution that we have written, the red line of the resolution, and maybe we get a little better consensus of what we have. In no way do we want to open the consent decree or do anything like that. All we want to do is get some guidelines on there, get a little bit of input, and I mean, you know, this throwing stones back and forth is getting nowhere. So I'm going to look for other comments from all the commissioners or whatever, but in my final statement, and I'm not going to make the motion at this time, but I plan on making a motion to hold this in abeyance and let this sit for a couple weeks and let everybody settle down and maybe read it and see that. I mean, I think there was nothing derogatory. I mean, I think Eric Castro does a good job. I think Julie Crane does a good job. The thing is, they're taking over from John Sesso and Molly Maffei. They're gone. They're the ones that, you know, noted this whole thing about us. We haven't heard from them since they retired and left. So I just think it's time that we try to get a little bit of input, try to take this resolution not so personal, and maybe X some things out and add a few things in and see where we go from there. Thank you.
I'll just kind of make a comment. You know, a part of my frustration since this has been placed before us is I agree with you. There's quite a few people saying what can and can't be opened up within this document. And one of the frustrating for me, we've had public comment that said, I'm not an attorney, but I listened to the attorney. So far, I haven't heard from one attorney that says what can and can't be done with this document. If we vote for this resolution, is it going to open the whole thing up? I didn't interpret it that, but I'm not an attorney, and I'm not going to claim to be one. But I feel your frustration on making a decision when we don't know what is legally correct and not correct. And I've heard both sides of it. I've heard, oh, you can't do this because this is gonna happen. And then I've heard, no, they can't do this even if you do this. So I don't know where to go from with this. So anyway, okay. Sorry for my little rant there. Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. I'd just like to start out with a comment that one of our commissioner makes every time when we have some conversation, and her favorite phrase is, "We're all adults here." And I think that that's what we got to look at here. Being in the field, I have the luxury of getting out. I'm retired and all that, visiting with people and all that. And the biggest concerns, I think, that basically behind this resolution was the fact that people don't know what's going on unless it's in the paper. I see the people out there that there's meetings, you can go to Zoom meetings, you can go to this and you can do that. But basically, when you look at I would say it's a gamble what we have going on. 40 years ago, this process started, and if somebody started something 40 years ago and we're at where we're at right now, I don't think that was a very good gamble. So I think we have to definitely make the changes that we need to make this process go along a little bit faster. Also inform the people of what they've been dealing with. I see people in the audience shaking their head and all that, because basically this is why we got to come together. But the thing about it is I'm telling you right now, the people of Butte aren't satisfied with what's going on. And as a council member of the people that we represent, that pay the people involved in this program are the taxpayers of Butte. And I think that we all got to realize and dig deep and all that before people shake their heads or laugh or anything like that. There still are people in Butte dying. My family come here in 1890. I seen people die falling down the shafts and everything like that. Diseases, blah, blah, blah. And I believe it exists. So we're going this reading isn't right, that reading isn't right. What is right? What's going on here right now, it's just like the Civil War. I'm right, you're right, the dirt's this, the that's that. Blah. We're not doing nothing like that. You know, and the thing about it is as Commissioner Frederickson said, the people around this, we absorb it in the community. You guys get around and get your opinions and form this and form that. We represent the people. They tell us and come to bitch about it, what's going on. So I think that you should take that in consideration, and I think Commissioner Fisher has made a great point here of taking a 2-week break, and everybody sat down and finally realized what our job is here and our commitment to Butte-Silver Bowl and the people of Butte-Silver Bowl over the past 40 years. Or even let's start this since 1890. I mean, what these people did to Butte is they come in and made it a dump. And now we're sitting here and we're going to settle for, I don't know. I just don't understand it. And I'm suffering the frustration as long with the people. So I think we got a long ways to go here, but I think this is a great deal. I feel like it's negotiating a contract of what we all have and all that, but you see somebody shaking their head. This is right, this is right. This isn't getting nothing done. And I'll tell you what, I realize there's parameters that people have to put out there to put these projects together. And in construction, I know you guys probably get tired. I worked it all my life, and my first deal was in dirt. And if we can't move as much dirt, if we can't do a better job at that, in construction, these people would be run off the job. So I think that they have to really look a lot about what they're going to do for Butte and start showing what it's all about. So I just wanted to reiterate that because I have a lot to clean up in my area. And these people are very, very frustrated. They've just given up on city government. We don't see very many neighborhood people here tonight because they're so frustrated they call it the show. And I'm tired of making the show out of a valuable asset to Butte over a period of years. And I think I support Commissioner Fisher's idea of holding this document for 2 weeks, and then we come and do a little soul searching and figure out why we're here. We're not here to hurt anybody's feelings. We're here to see some progress. So I just wanted to thank you. I always kind of get carried away, but this is a very important item. Thank you.
Could
Yep, County Attorney Joyce, sure.
Thank you, Commissioner Frederickson. I just wanted to respond a little bit to what you and Commissioner Fisher indicated in terms of legal advice and what you can and can't do. I mean, there is obviously a provision in the charter that's been referenced that indicates that there's not supposed to, the Council of Commissioners nor its member may give orders to any such employee, either publicly or privately. And I just want to point out that this resolution, wasn't provided to our office to even look at whether or not any of the terms may be in violation of the charter or otherwise. And we are supposed to be the, legal advisor to the city county. So I just think that it's important to note that nobody asked us any questions about the content of the resolution before it was submitted. So I don't think it's fair to criticize necessarily that people are questioning some of the language as to whether or not it is in violation of the charter or otherwise. Also, we do have Sean Peterson, who has replaced Molly Maffei's participation with the Superfund issues. He's here in the audience tonight. He also is an environmental engineer and obviously a lawyer. So we do have some knowledge that we can bring to the table in reviewing these matters.
Thank you, County Attorney Joyce. I think that what I was referring to was legal interpretation of whether the consent decree can be opened by even us passing this resolution, which has been brought up many times. But I do appreciate you letting us know about Deputy County Attorney Peterson. I don't think that anyone here knew that he was really working on Superfund issues, so that's good to know. Commissioner Sorich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think these discussions are great. It's something we can all learn a little bit. I think we all need to learn more. None of us are experts by any means. I've got pretty close to 25 years in the around the Superfund forum, I guess you want to call it. I've been on the pit watch since probably 1998. That's a while ago. I'm just a Greeley kid trying to make the best of it, trying to grasp the complexity of what's going on. But what I have learned, I've learned who has the expertise, and I've learned who the professionals are that I can trust. That's one thing I have learned. Saying that, I know there are some of these experts and some of these that are in the room tonight. They've committed their lives, they've committed their knowledge, and they're willing to share. So I would just like to start off by maybe just asking, we probably have some of the best staff there is, as Mr. Griffin has said. We're in the state of Montana, probably in the country, understanding the Superfund laws, understanding the Superfund. So stating that, I would just like to ask some of our staff, who I trust, on a couple of the bullet points that, what their opinions are. I'd like to start with number one. I'd like to ask Mr. Hassler, about the deviation of the consent decree, shall be driven by science. And I know recently there was a position paper about gray dirt that was released. I'd like to ask Mr. Hassler just to come up and kind of give his position, what he thinks about this position paper on the gray dirt that was recently released.
Director Hassler. The microphone's yours.
Chairman Frederickson, members of council, for the record, I'm Eric Hassler, the Director of the Department of Reclamation and Environmental Services. In regards to the variation, I don't see that in my interpretation of the CD. The biggest thing in and around gray dirt, I think, that needs to be considered and remembered is if these projects weren't occurring down there for stormwater, this material wouldn't be moved. It does not meet what they consider the waste classifications underneath the consent decree. But then on the flip side, it does not meet, as Mr. Barrett has said, the fill requirements either. But that is what the fill requirements are intended for, what materials are brought in to do the final capping and grading of the site. So if there was no other project to be conducted there, this material would remain. There seems to be a misconception, if you will, that this level of materials will be trucked here. That's just not true. This is material that is on site, and again, it would not be removed if it was solely the material that was on the site. So this material needs to be moved from one portion of the site to another to make room for a basin. I mean, that's the purpose. If not, it would remain there. It does not meet the waste criteria. So you're kind of caught with a yin and a yang, if you will, on does it meet fill requirements? No, not technically for what is going to be imported. And that is the difference and the discrepancy within the tables within the consent decree, is they defined what you can bring to a site. They defined what needs to leave a site. You have this gap zone, and that is gray material. So the argument has been, does it need to be removed? Well, technically, legally, no, it's not waste. But does it need to be dealt with? Yes, for sure. And that's what the technical teams are working on, is there are appropriate places within these project areas for this material to go. It needs to be kept high and dry. It needs to be underneath impervious surfaces. It needs, there's aspects to this where it is a very usable material. And I think the biggest thing I could say to it is does not meet the waste classification within there. But I'll agree, it does not meet the imported fill classification within the CD as well, hence the gray term. But it's the yin and the yang. It's not necessary to be removed, and if it was the sole purpose was to remove dirt there, it wouldn't be removed. This stuff needs to be picked up and dealt with to make room for a stormwater basin, which is a completely different component of remedy. That is dealing with contaminated stormwater. The contaminated soils that is truly defined as contaminated soils will be taken away. So, and they will be even lower than the Parrot project materials that are listed here on Mr. Barrett's chart. I mean, the imported fill criteria is quite stringent. So I could explain further. I prefer, questions if you'll ask. That's what we're here to do, is inform. And it seems to be a bit of a gap right now, is people are feeling uninformed, but we're not being approached either. And our doors are always open, and that is our job as Butte-Silver Bow employees, is to inform the public and inform you guys as to what is going on. But it's been crickets in my office from this group. I mean, we got the request for West Side soils. We got them here to do West Side soils. I've had no other questions, concerns brought to my attention at this point. But that is my take on the gray material. Is it does not meet the definition of waste, but it does not meet the definition of imported fill, but it's not being imported. And if you weren't making room for a basin, it wouldn't be touched. That's as simple as I could put it.
Okay, so. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Director Hassler. And you've shared your frustrations with me on not, asking questions. And I know I'm going to do a lot better job of that myself. I can't speak for everyone else, but I'm going to make a point to ask more questions with your office. So,
thank you, Chairman Frederickson.
Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director Hassler. Couple of questions. That was a very good explanation, by the way. It helped me understand a little bit better. What other options were considered before arriving at this decision?
I would say none. I mean, this is, when we were in this process, there was, again, a definition of what is waste. What is defined as waste? And this material doesn't meet it, so there was no other. This has been a typical practice through Superfund across the nation, is to move the material that you need to. We do it on a breeze site or an upland area on the Butte Hills. If it was not contaminated but didn't meet the fill criteria, you used it to make the topography match, make it look more natural. Then you brought in the imported fill and capped it as well. This material will be the same thing. And the only difference, like I said, is that you can't leave it where it's sitting because it's in the way for a basin. So, but there are areas within each geographic footprint of these project areas that it can be utilized safely and it'll eliminate the need to bring in additional materials and eliminate the need to do additional removals as well. So it's got the trucking impact should be considered as an impact for our community along with it. I hope that answered your question. Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a follow-up right now.
Okay. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. Director Hassler, I don't think I have any questions for you right now. But just looking into this resolution, I know Fish wants to talk about it a little bit. I guess some of my confusion too lies in the fact, well, one being, if we're going to put something like this out to be discussed, in my opinion, I think the question of, well, could this open the consent decree or not, should have been answered probably before it was put out to anybody, because that's a big thing that could happen or not happen. So whether we got legal advice on that or not, I think that that's probably something that we should have maybe faced prior to this. But aside from that, with the point on here that says public engagement or will engage in public relations activities on behalf of any entity regarding Superfund, da-da-da-da. It's my understanding that we have people within Butte-Silver that put public information out on websites or that are managed by Butte-Silver. I guess with this resolution, and this is something that we can talk about, how does that work?
Commissioner Frederickson and Commissioner Thatcher, I'd like to kick that question to Julia Crane. She oversees all of that type activity for the department with public engagement and public information. So with your permission,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Assistant Director Crane.
Chairman Frederickson, Commissioner Thatcher, to address your question and also to address the body. As the Assistant Director of the Department of Reclamation, I perform in many administrative functions, and the breadth of my work touches on developing budgets, understanding how our staff is acting on behalf of their own duties, whether it be in the soils program or in the residential metals abatement program. As part of the consent decree in 2021, Butte-Silver DEQ, under the feedback of the Montana EPA, or the US EPA and the Montana Department of Environmental Quality, Butte-Silver and Atlantic Richfield were tasked with developing a comprehensive community engagement plan. And that plan went above and beyond in its outreach to stakeholders in this community. And by and large, in that plan, they spoke to us and said that the people that they want to hear information from are people on our staff. And that is our staff that lives and works here in Butte-Silver. One of the primary outcomes of the community engagement plan were that there are various ways that people in this community want to receive their information, and it has to do with what they have access to. Some people are very much still interested in receiving their information via traditional methods. They want to use newspaper. They want to hear things on the radio. They want to hear things on the news. But there's also a growing number of people in our community that want to see digital methods used, whether that be Facebook, which is the primary mechanism that our public told us we should be using, and a site-wide website. And as a result of the community engagement plan, bipsu.com was established. And bipsu.com is a clearinghouse for all information as it relates to the Butte Priority Soils Operable Unit cleanup. Included on that website are site summaries for each project area that's affiliated with with the broader consent decree cleanup, from the north side tailings and the diggings east cleanups and the potential in land use at those locations and how those will be designed. All of that being feedback that was gathered in a public process that initiated in 2017 and concluded in 2018, leading up to the agreement in principle. Most recently, the bipsu.com website has been used to link the signage that has been placed in all of the parks in Butte that have been cleaned up under the RMAP cleanup this year. That includes Cherokee Park in the neighborhood near the Anselmo Mine Yard, Coppervica Park on 2nd Avenue or 2nd Street and 1st Street. All of those project summaries are advertised at those parks on a sign that looks like you're selling your house, and it has a QR code. So those with a smart device can access the website and read the summaries of that information. I work collaboratively with engineers that are performing this work, whether it be analytical or actual construction, to make sure that that updated material is placed on bipsu.com so that it is available in multiple formats for our public. Public engagement is something that I take profoundly seriously as a resident of this community and also as a professional with a background in public engagement. I think the question here is that there has been a shortfall in the communication of information over the course of this summer. The latest update to that website was May 4th. It was when the information on the parks cleanup was placed there. That work is still ongoing. I know that some of you live in those neighborhoods and have seen it taking place, most recently up on Emmett and Court Street in Uptown Butte. I think the thing that would be helpful for me and for our team is to know what can we do to improve communication not only to our public but to you as a body. If the methods that we are employing at this point in time are something that are not meeting your needs, please let us know what it is you'd like to hear about. We work day in and day out. We are busy in the summer because the ground is thawed and we're doing construction. But we're here to communicate the work that we are doing and the work that our partners are doing in this community. Cleaning up breeze sites, doing operations and maintenance works on those sites all throughout Uptown Butte. And also this very critical work in the parks, but also the ongoing residential sampling of residents' homes throughout the county and in the excavation control district or in the expanded area for the RMAP program. And so I think it's important to note that this is a huge part of my workload and making sure that we're planning appropriately for how we can anticipate releasing information to the public. And any input in how we can improve that is something that we are more than welcoming from you.
Thank you, Assistant Director Crane. I think addressing council on activities that are going on in your department would probably, I'm trying to think of when's the last time the department has given us a presentation, and it's been a very long time, quite a few years, I think. Probably since was it last year? Okay. Well, I take that back. Maybe. All right, follow up, Commissioner Thatcher.
You're good, Julia. Thank you for your answer. So then I think that's one thing that I'd like for to be considered on all of this. And just the next thing I'd like to be put up into consideration is, obviously we in Butte-Silver have very good stewards on both sides of this issue. Mr. Ringsack, Mr. Barrett, our super fun department. We have very good people that are really great for our community. What frustrates me with this resolution is that within this writing, I'm not sure if it was done to get a reaction out of EPA, because I've heard that, to get some sort of something from EPA. I've heard that line of communication. I'm not sure if that's what we were looking for. I believe that it started with their press releases last week. I think that, there has been a reaction. We got an email tonight sitting here from Taylor Gillespie, and they're opening more additional Butte Superfund meetings for public observation. So I think if that was our reaction, or if that was our goal, then sure, we've done that. But my frustration lies in the fact that if that was our goal, and if we're looking to go after EPA and get something from them, none of this resolution, and I think somebody made this comment last week, addresses that. This is strictly addressing our department and what our department is not doing and what we can and cannot be doing, and that's frustrating to me because, we have this department for a reason, and if we don't feel that this department is doing the job that it needs to be doing, then that's a whole nother conversation. But in my mind, to approach it in a way that were addressing them in such a manner, I feel was a little bit accusatory. Whether that is not the opinion of everybody else, that is entirely cool. But I just think maybe that there was a better way if our goal was to get a reaction from EPA. I think that there probably was a better way to do it. But that is probably all I'll have to say right now. That is my opinion as of right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Chairman
Commissioner
Frederickson.
O'Neill, sorry.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. Definitely just want to show my frustration on when these conversations come up, it's always guys, poking somebody and whatever, and that's why these are so hard to, it makes the communication really hard, You got one smart guy fighting against the next smart guy, or this guy knows this, and blah, blah, blah. And one, we do have to trust our employees that are here, and I think if anything, we just, hey, have the team come to us quarterly and give us reports, see where it's at. I mean, that's a pretty easy situation. I know Eric's cell phone number is wide open. I shouldn't say that on record. I'll throw it out on Facebook later, but honestly, I think that's the biggest thing is all these conversations turn into a fight. And when anybody's coming in and poking at people, and of course they're going to fight back, right? Nobody likes to be, I have the wrong words. They're kind of swear words, so I won't say that. But it's just frustrating because we're all after the same thing. So, and one thing I want to say about the resolution, I support the effort of where you're going with it, because it is, what we're trying to do and reach out. But I guess we got to look at it a different way. I'm not saying we kill it, but if anything, it needs to go through the county attorney's office, like she said, and go through that part of it, right? I mean, I think that's where I'm at right now. But I'm definitely sick and tired of the and I'm piggybacking on most of you guys. I'm sick and tired of all the I'm smarter than you, and this is that, and why didn't we do this, and why did we vote for the consent decree? Well, we did. We're on the move, so we better support that and get it moving, and try to do that whether we like it or not. We're in the soup now with that, so we better support the people who we think supporting us. And the other thing I'm sick of hearing about is this backdoor money, who's getting paid off. I mean, it's just like all this made up stuff, and I hope that, like, all your guys' information that are, like, I give, Mr. Barrett, I give all you guys credit in the world. I know all you guys are out there for the right reasons and protecting Butte. You guys want what's best for Butte, and this is no disrespect, but I hope your guys' information mirrors, and it's in the same respects of what's truly happening, right? Because I know a lot of my calls are, how a story goes on. It goes from this to this to this, and I mean, it's somehow, what is the truth, right? Like, I mean, you could hold that little board you made up there, and that could go so many different ways. So I just think that the communication needs to be a little better, and just enough of this. It's got to quit. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. I think I would like to call Mr. Ringsack back to the podium for a minute. He explained earlier that you cannot change the consent decree. I think we're getting off subject here a little bit. All we're really trying to do here is we brought action, we're going to resolve it, and the thing about it is we want scientific data, not EPA lawyers telling us what to do and DEQ lawyers telling us what to do. We want scientific data that tells us the dirty dirt is going to be safe. That's what we want. We want to know that the dirty dirt's going to be safe. All these numbers they're throwing at us, I don't know nothing about them. I do know one thing. I am not smart enough to write this, but I had some real good help writing this letter. Thank you.
Mr. Ringsack.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, thank you again. And I appreciate your comments, and Jim for introducing everybody, but there were about 15 people that wrote this thing, and I was one of them that helped with it, okay? After that meeting on the 1st of May, when Nikki Green said, you know, the public's not smart enough to understand this stuff, and if they came to meetings, they jam the meetings up, and we wouldn't ever get anything done. And then that email I read earlier from BP saying we don't want people in these meetings. It's distressing. And you know, the people the county has working on this stuff are good, and they're trying, and their heart's in the right place, and our argument is not with them. What that resolution is a plea from us to say, would you gentlemen please be the bulwark that you need to be, because we're getting eaten alive by $200,000 hour attorneys. We really are. We've been handed our head. In 1998, on the first allocation agreement draft, when that was done, we signed off on an agreement. In that agreement was if BP will put 12 inches of soil on top of the parrot tailings, we'll relieve you the responsibility of having to do it later. And you'll give us $15 million in a SARDIC kit that we can use around the town. Well, we only got 10 because when they finally signed the consent decree, they didn't give them the other 5. That was traded off for something else. And so what we really need, I think, is what Jim has been suggesting. If you hire outside counsel that is an environmental attorney that can give you people the advice you need to block what's happening. Because EPA, I believe personally, I've been on the Upper Clark Fork River Advisory Council for 13 years. And we've been handling everything from the dam in Missoula and Missoula's wonderful recovery to Butte. I don't think any of you know this, but in 1998, when Governor Roscoe created the Upper Clark Fork River Advisory Council, the first resolution that council passed was we will spend none of the restoration money in Butte Area 1 until the consent decree is signed. That was 1998. There was $111 million in that fund. We have spent, since it started in 98, $171 million. With interest, there's still $70 million left, most of it in aquatic. There were 3 categories: aquatic, terrestrial, and groundwater. And every year, Butte-Silver had to write a request proposal to get money to build that new pipeline from the Big Hole, every single year. And the consultants got 15% every single year. So Jim and I said, groundwater is 33%, aquatics 35%, and terrestrial's 34%. We're going to take that 33% left, that $40 million, and we're going to give it $30 million to Butte and $10 million to Anaconda and tell them to spend it the way they see fit, so they don't have to do this year after year after year. That was done. But there are things in that consent decree right now that are being negotiated in private meetings, particularly as it relates to the allocation agreement that we got hung up on 20 years ago. And so the stuff that's going to come to you, you need to know what's been done. And when you read it, the allocation agreement's 800 pages. I read it 10 years ago. But when you read it, you read, this is item 1 is the consent decree, and then there's A, B, C, and D underneath that. And then under the A, there's 1A, 3, double A, 6, 7B. It's about 4 or 5 or 6 levels deep that we don't get into. And you have never been given that information, ever. And you need to have it. So the council has never been properly prepped on this. I know, I've sat here and watched them bring in something to you, present it, and it's already a done deal. They don't give you another option. They haven't talked to you or discussed it before it happens. And why this thing finally came about was to give you the tool you need to put this in a bracket. And there are some complaints that, oh, they only did it for Silver Bow. It doesn't involve EPA. It does not involve ARCO. It does not involve the state. It's just Silver Bow County. Well, that's what you can control. You guys are the policy director for Silver Bow County. You can't control EPA. You can't control ARCO. You can't control the state, except they can't do anything unless everybody signs off on it, and you don't have to sign off on it. And the new plan they're offering you, and I'll say one more thing and I'll stop. There's a section in the plan called criteria for the five metals, I guess, because arsenic isn't a metal. But there's levels for arsenic, lead, cadmium, zinc, copper, and mercury. And in the current one, in the consent decree, the levels for lead are 1,200. And the levels for copper I'm sorry, they're 1,000 parts kilograms per gram. Copper and lead and zinc. In the plan for the EPA, they want to raise the levels for copper and lead to 5,000. And then here's the kicker. There's those 6 metals under the consent decree. If 3 of those metals are over criteria, then it's waste and you have to remove it. If only 2 are over the criteria, it's not waste, it's on-site tailings. And when you raise those levels to 5,000 and 5,000, they're not going to be over. They'll always be in pretty good shape. So then you're left with those other 4. And what happens, if you use arsenic in the fill, arsenic just below the criteria, and then you dump arsenic on top of it, you got way too much, and that's what's happened to Arrowstone Park in Deer Lodge. It was built 20 years ago, and now they can't let kids into it. And you have to watch that. And my concern is, because BP, and I don't blame them, is a corporation and they have one function, and that's maximize the return to the stockholder. EPA is supposed to have one function, to do what's best for the community. The NRDP, when it took out the parent tailings, did not use that criteria. If any one of those 6 metals was overlit, they removed everything. It cost an extra $3 million to do it. But there's nothing in that consent decree. It has the guidelines. There's nothing that says you have to accept them. You can set your guidelines that you'll sign off on for this community. But thank you all for what you do. 1,700 pages. I don't think hardly anybody, they all read it, but you don't read the 7th paragraph. I'm sorry. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ringsack. Commissioner Sorch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to comment, they're talking about outside counsel, and I'm just trying to stretch my memory, and Eileen, you might be able to help me out. I recall back in the 2011 record of decision, which is a big part of the consent decree, that the Butte-Silver did hire an attorney from San Francisco. I think we paid him some big dollars for negotiation. He was an environmental attorney that I believe that helped negotiate that record of decision back then. If you can, I know I'm going back a ways, but if maybe you can kind of recall
County
that.
Attorney Joyce. If you
Chairman Frederickson,
recall.
Commissioner Sorge, Butte-Silver did retain Gordon Hart, who is an environmental attorney, to help negotiate the allocation agreement. And we spent quite a bit of money on him.
Was he worth it?
Okay, thank you. I don't know who is next. Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. So, okay, so we get the, what's it called? The resolution. We do the resolution, okay? It's approved. It doesn't mess with our charter, okay? Now what? We just have another thing, okay? I mean, I didn't read all the pages. If I was trying to get the consent decree on books, like the tape, CD, compact disc or something, I shouldn't say that jokingly, but it'd be nicer if it was on tape, because then I could have got through it. However, so we have the resolution, we have it, it's all good, and now what? Can somebody answer me that? Like, now what? Now, because we still aren't going to understand it, right?
Well, hopefully you will.
Well, how though? Can you explain to me how we will off of that?
Yeah, okay. First, Mr. Ringsack, this conversation is between us, okay? All due respect. So what is your question exactly?
Once the resolution, in a dream world, right? The resolution goes through and it doesn't mess with our charter. It's accepted, everything's good, and we all high five and like, yeah, let's do it. Okay, now what? We still are in the same boat, aren't we? Like, can you explain that to me? And if that's a dumb question, thank you. Somebody answer that for me. Again, I'll repeat the question. We get the resolution, we're still in the same boat, in my opinion. Okay? We still don't understand the resolution, or we don't understand the consent decree. What's that going to give us now? We still have to reach out to the people who who are supporting this and doing their jobs. We still have to support them, or we have to call these guys and get the answers from them. It's the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, well, we pass ordinances and resolutions all the time. And so I think that this, however this was laid out, would be laid out in, after it goes through the review process, the normal process that we do for all of our resolutions and ordinances, then we would have a guideline of what, is acceptable, whatever was decided upon through, how it is, it would go through judiciary. Okay. Yeah, Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I guess maybe the one thing that I really like about the resolution that I feel very strongly about, and this is not a secret, this is just who I am, is the transparency piece of it. It's what I campaigned on. It's what I've told everybody I would do, and it was what I pledged to be a watchdog on, and I've done that so far. That is not to say that I think anybody involved in any of the process is doing anything nefarious or not above board. What happens when you're not allowing public participation or their right to observe matters that affect them greatly is there's a lot of misinformation that gets strung around. And if you don't want that, you need to be transparent. And the people deserve to know what is being negotiated. Negotiations are give and take. The people want to know what's being given by their local government, what's being taken by their local government. They want to know the answers to those questions. If we go back to the first repository, when that all went down with Timber Butte, okay, the public got wind of it when it was almost all the way decided, and they went wild because they had no context, no conversations, no nothing. And that came off the table because of the public pushback. That's what we're here to do. We are here to do the will of the public. This forum is not conducive to dialogue, period. It's just not. You talk at each other, you listen to each other speak. There's very little question and answer that's meaningful, because to get to a good solution, the information has to come from everybody. It has to come from the professionals in the reclamation department. It has to come from people with dissenting views. Those people need to be together in the same room having the conversation so everybody can listen. And without public participation, that doesn't happen. We are obligated to provide the public with an opportunity to participate in their local government. If we can't do that because of the people we are at the table with, we need to figure that out, because we have an obligation to our people. And I think we should be transparent wherever we can, as much as we can. Anything that is legitimate stands up to scrutiny. And I don't care what it is. If it's legitimate, it will stand up to the scrutiny. The truth will come out. Science will prevail. There are scientists that disagree. So neither one of them thinks they're wrong. But to have those two dissenting opinions in one location talking about it, that'd be super valuable for the public, I think. So that's the piece of this resolution that I am really excited about. There are some things that I think go a little too far, or maybe are definitely outside of our purview as far as the separation of powers, but I'm all in on the transparency.
Okay. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. One quick point is it surely isn't just gentlemen sitting up here, so I'd like to make note of that. And second point is if we are looking for transparency from the county, it would be wise, I believe, to probably engage the deputy county attorney that's been involved or doing the work regarding the consent decree, whom I see in the audience right now. So if that would be okay with everybody, I would like Deputy County Attorney Peterson to come up and speak.
Deputy County Attorney Peterson, welcome.
Commissioner Thatcher.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sean, I guess, there's a lot of stuff going on, or in fact, people were unaware that we even had somebody working on the consent decree in our local government. Where are you at? I'm sure you're frustrated. Are there things that, you can be telling us so that we can understand this better regarding the consent decree, regarding all of these elements that are being put forth?
I mean, my first frustration would be not being questioned in the first place, right? I don't think it's hidden that I've been working on this, have been doing this work. So I would say that's the most frustrating part of this, and having my qualifications questioned by multiple people on this commission tonight. I will agree. I'm newer in our office. I've done a lot of work in the criminal law, but I do have a background in environmental. We have another county attorney in the office that has a background in environmental sciences. This is something, while I was going to school that I've lived, right? I'm born and raised here as well, so I do have strong opinions on this as well, and that would be it. As far as everything else goes, I think there are some things with this resolution that are just untrue, regarding the confidentiality agreement, regarding, the legal ramifications.
Mr. Peterson, can you get the microphone a little? Yeah,
No,
thank you.
So I do think, the confidentiality agreement is still in effect for certain items. Those negotiations that were confidential are still confidential. It wasn't opened up. It wasn't opened up with the CD. Everything moving forward is open, right? The confidentiality agreement wouldn't apply to because the CD has been signed. But all of those negotiations, everything that happened before, is still covered, at least in my opinion and my legal reasoning, by that confidentiality agreement, and that is some of the issues that arise in these situations. I think as well, we are all hired for a reason. We do all have qualifications. We wouldn't be in the positions we are if we didn't. So I don't know if there's any other specific questions.
I mean, I don't think anyone was questioning your qualifications. I just think that we didn't know who was working on it.
And I would say that's probably not a me problem. That's
No.
As the commissioners, I would want to be informed of who it is, and if you get this, if I got this document before, right, then I have you can come to my office at any time, Commissioner Fisher. My door's open. I'm here 7 to 4 o'clock every day. Do I have a lot of other stuff I work on? Absolutely. We all do. We're all overworked. I understand. So that's kind of where we're at.
Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. Thank you for your input. I guess all I got to say is, my door's open too.
Absolutely.
So what I'd like you to do is what I recommended at the start of this conversation. Review this resolution, redline it, bring it back.
I would be
Let's
happy
discuss
to.
it, and we'll go forward. So at this time, I would like to make a motion. We hold communication 2023-436 in abeyance.
We have a motion and a second. Is there anything on the question? Would commissioners please vote? Clerk, will you record the vote?
Eleven yea, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay. 11 yea, 0 nay. Motion passes. We will take this up again September 12th at the next. Yeah, hold up. We will continue to hold this in the committee of the whole. So it'll be September 13th. Okay, so 3 weeks. Is there any public comment on any item not on the agenda? Please state your name and record for the name and address for the record.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, my name is Evan Barrett, 807 West Silver Street in Butte. I wanted to call to your attention, some of you may have seen this or may not have, but as you recall, that I worked for about 5 months to try to get EPA to open up meetings for observation and didn't get anywhere. So finally I wrote a letter requesting it formally, and I requested that Butte-Silver, then 2 state agencies support that request, and Chief Executive J.P. Gallagher did indicate that level of support from Butte-Silver. So I still, by the way, to this point have not received a letter of response to the request. That being said, at 7:38 tonight, Taylor Gillespie, a public relations person for EPA, put out a statement from the EPA Regional Administrator Casey Becker. The headline, if you probably will have it at your email, EPA opens additional Butte Superfund meetings for public observation in latest step to enhance transparency. And then what follows is a rather long statement from Casey Becker, the regional administrator, to whom I had spoken about this quite a bit, and I know JP had as well. And so I think it's at least a partial victory for openness and transparency. She's been giving rhetoric about it, but now they're doing something about it. Having said that, I would urge each of you to read the statement very closely and make sure that it's what we want. Example in her statement, she says it's basically we're going to do an experiment for 4 months and see if it works. She also delineates very specific meetings that they think should be open. I requested that all EPA meetings be available for the public to see. So I'm not quite satisfied yet. Nonetheless, it's a major step forward, and Butte-Silver was to be congratulated for the role it played in helping get this done. I would also say that maybe it's a signal to each and every one of us that if we stand for what's right, how about openness, and we stand firm for what's right, then maybe things work out. We should not be cowed by the fact that we have a federal agency that is resistant, because you have a lot of power. You represent the people of this community. So when we have the opportunity on things like openness, or dirty versus clean, let's stand tall and right for what's right, and do what's right for our community, and let's let the EPA bend instead of us bending. So that's a comment I wanted to make. I would like to add one other thing, just as a matter of clarification. Someone referred to that as my chart. That's not my chart. That is the chart of the Natural Resource and Damage Program in Helena, who submitted that officially to the EPA, and I got it from their submission and just cut and pasted it out and made it onto this. So that's not me saying that. That's the Natural Resource Damage Program, who I happen to think has been the greatest protector of us in this whole dirty dirt situation, the one that's fought longest and hardest to get clean fill into that place. But again, it's not mine, just as a matter of clarification. And thank you for your participation in helping get meetings opened up.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. I also want to remind commissioners to not come up here next Wednesday, because it's the 5th Wednesday. So whether you're going to the EPA meeting at the Butte Emergency Center at 6 o'clock next Wednesday, or taking some time off, and also there's a, how about you? I'm not going to be able to make the tour, so I'll let you speak to that.
Just for the record, CTEC is sponsoring a tour tomorrow, meeting at the Chamber of Commerce at 6 o'clock, I believe. And there'll be, I would encourage, if any members of the public are still awake at 10:38 tonight, or if you listen to it tomorrow, I would encourage you to show up, be there to ask questions. There's going to be a lot of knowledgeable people there.
So I will take a motion to adjourn. We have a motion, a second, all by signaling by saying